Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming to our council meeting. I just need to double check. Grassroots, are we ready to fly on this? Yep. Okay. We always want to thank Grassroots because they televise our meetings live and then they play them over and over again for people who can't sleep at night. It's great for that. Our videographer this evening is Shannon Bruckner. Thank you, Shannon, for being here for us all the time. And tomorrow morning is the Mayor's Coffee at CC's from 8 to 8:30. I don't know if our town manager will be there or not. He will be there. Okay, that's pretty much it. So we're going to call this meeting to order at 6:02. Could we ask for a roll call, please?
Gary Tenenbaum.
Here.
Katie Schwer.
Here.
Jennifer Riffle. Present. Ryan Slack.
Here.
Auden Schindler.
Here.
Bill Infante. Here. Jackie Whitsitt.
Here. Thank you, Pam.
Present.
Great. Okay, we're going to roll out this meeting with our very favorite thing, which is our February Students of the Month. And these awards are given to special students, and they are nominated by their teachers who know them very well. And I'm happy to say I know a couple of parents in here, so that always is exciting for me. So we are going to just explain this a little bit. The awards are based on 6 pillars of character, and tonight the pillar is caring. And to care, you are kind, compassionate, and show that you care for others. You express gratitude, you forgive others, and you help people in need. So I'm gonna ask maybe that Jennifer start this off.
Sure. May I please have sophomore Walker Lassiter?
And if you just come up here in front of the person, they will give you an award. Yes, ma'am, I like that.
So you get to stand here and I'm gonna read something about you, and you were nominated by Mrs. Lewis and Mrs. Edlin. All right, so sophomore Walker Lassiter is one of the most polite people on the planet. Yes, sir, yes, ma'am.
That's impressive. He's done. Mic drop.
I've never seen him participate in any interaction without showing as much respect as possible. He takes everyone's feelings into account in everything he does and is very conscious of the way he participates, if he doesn't agree with others' opinions or actions. He cares for everyone around him and does what it takes to be a kind, respectful student to peers and adults alike. I constantly see him sticking up for others and thanking people for their time and their help.
Yay. Thank you, ma'am. Excellent.
Congratulations.
Auden, do you want to go?
Sure. Okay, Kai Salas.
Yay! Right there, Kai.
Here, sweetie. Come right here.
Or you can be there.
He can come on your lap.
There you go.
Kai, I'm going to read about you now. Kai is a very kind child. He uses cheerful and respectful tone of voice to everyone he meets. He is very compassionate. He always makes sure that other people have what they need and are comfortable. He constantly expresses gratitude. He has good manners, saying thank you and you're welcome. He's quick to forgive others when they apologize. He helps others when they have a conflict by offering suggestions of what they can do to make things better. This is why we chose Kai as Student of the Month. Good work.
Gary, want to go?
Sure. Is Ronnie Pequeño Guzman here?
Yeah.
So, Ronnie, your teacher says you're a happy, curious student who cares about his classmates and teachers. He frequently gives up his recess time to help others with homework and models successful student behavior to friends who might otherwise not complete work. He is supportive and positive with all his interactions, treating everyone he encounters with respect and compassion. He expresses gratitude for his class experiences and teachers and is kind to all. Impressive. Awesome.
Isn't this the most fun you've had all week, really? Bill Infante?
That's awesome.
Good job.
Can I invite Maria Ramos Jimenez?
Woo!
No complaints. Maria, here is the salutation. Maria is always looking to see whom she can help. She has transitioned several students who do not speak English into classes, translating and teaching them about school systems. She spends her recess time helping friends with homework and projects and is always looking for ways to help others, including her teachers. Maria shows great empathy and compassion to others by quietly helping them when needed. Congratulations. Wonderful.
Great job. Congratulations. Good job. Oh, yeah, we've got these like killer chords up here. Excellent. Yeah, 1, 2.
I have Greta Files.
Greta.
Yeah, Greta.
Whoa!
How are you? Greta is the very definition of compassion. She is always concerned about her friends' safety, health, and well-being. We have had several new students join class this year, and Greta has taken each of these new kiddos under her wing to make sure they know what to expect and that they have a friend to play and eat lunch with. Greta cares about others, and it really shows. I am proud to call myself her teacher and watch her spread kindness like peanut butter and jelly.
That's awesome.
Thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
Okay, I think I may have the last one. We ran out. Sorry, Katie. Okay. So I know this mom. I hope I can get this name right. Is it Junior Yamileth Velasquez? Somebody say it again for me. Thank you. Come on. Okay. You are looking. You look like your mother. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay. Yamileth is one of the most compassionate, respectful, and kind students. She is always willing to walk the extra mile to help others. She brings light to others and feelings of real involvement when it comes to helping others to find relief to their suffering. Yami, do we call you Yami? Okay, works very hard, but still attributes her success to the community of people that have helped her get there. Yamileth is such a bright yet humble young woman. She was always so open-minded and so shows so much grace in her interactions with her peers. Sorry, I just cry when I do this. She's selfless with her knowledge and continually looks for ways to improve and understand the world better. Such a deserving student. Nominated by Mrs. Martinez, Ms. Pipkin, and Ms. Lewis. Wow. Congratulations. Thank you, all you parents who brought your kids in this evening. This is truly a special time for all of us up here. It's one of the most positive things that we do for ourselves and for the community and the kids. I think it means a lot to the kids, believe it or not. So that was our final award. We do give a pool pass to everybody who gets these awards, and also one of our staff will take a photo of everybody. If you would like to go out into the hallway there, and you're kind of finished in here right now, if you want
Unless
to
you
go.
want to stay.
Unless you want to stay, which I don't invite you to do that.
I'm so sorry for that line. I don't even know
Don't
where
worry
it
about
is.
it. You know, I was ready this time for like videoing Jen because now she knows I'm not gonna like, be here. Okay, awesome. I'll just put that right up there.
Allowed to have peanut butter and jelly.
It's already still on 3 minutes from the last time.
You're not allowed to have peanut butter and nut butter and Aspen. Probably not because of allergies.
Full night.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so we did that. Okay, on our consent agenda tonight, we only have the minutes of February 11th. Is there a motion, if not questions?
I move we approve the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. The next item is a request for anyone in the public who has comments for anything that is not on the agenda. Please come up. We limit you to 3 minutes if you don't mind.
Thanks, Jackie.
And
Warwick
we welcome
Mowbray.
you. I haven't seen you for a while.
That's okay. That's good news, isn't it?
Well, I don't know.
Warwick Mowbray. I just want to let the council know that the fly fishing team USA has chosen Basalt to do its final, which will be conducted on the last day of April and the first 2 days of May here, to choose the world team for the next 2 years.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. And Ryan and Suzanne are aware of it. They've been very helpful, so I just wanted to formally let you know. It's
Thank
good for the
you.
town. We'll have 48 competitors here, and they'll be here for the week. And
That's great. Maybe we can get together and plan something with the chamber or something like that. A little welcome.
I've spoken with the chamber for
Excellent. Okay, you're
for
way
the-
ahead of me.
I've been doing a lot of work already, just quietly, just getting everything in place. But I just wanted to formally let you know
That's exciting.
so that you can talk about it.
Thanks for say hi to your lovely wife.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Good evening. Thank you.
Okay, mayor and council reports and comments. Before I forget, let me just quickly say that there is a master plan public hearing this Thursday, as in day after tomorrow. Here at 6 p.m., we welcome everybody to please come in and give us your final comments on this thing before we finalize it, because I'm sure there's a few things that you maybe didn't get to say during the public rounds. Also, there is another, and I think it's the final candidate forum on Monday night again. This time it is all the council candidates and all the mayor candidates, and it's at the library at 6 p.m. I don't know if it's televised.
I think it is.
Okay, so we think it's televised, but I wouldn't count on that. I try to come if you can. And also, I know she's not here because she's not here at night, but Lonnie Martin was just hired at our front desk, and I could cry. I'm so happy. She is a super, super nice person. I'm hearing really great things about her professionally. And so even though she's not here, you can tell her that I thanked her on TV. That would be great. That's all I think I have. Others?
Couple things. Starting with Blue Star Recycling, which I know Ryan has been speaking to you guys about doing several events, but it looks like they are going to be establishing a quasi-permanent residence for at least the next couple years over in the Willits Bend area. They'll be renting one of the 3 warehouses in the back portion of the property for the purpose of collecting and sorting e-waste, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
They'll be moving in April and will begin operations sometime shortly thereafter. But that was pretty good news.
Who's they?
Blue Star Recycling? And Blue Star has a number of different facilities. They have one in Colorado Springs, Denver, Durango. Their model tends to be highly engaging of those on the autism spectrum, and so they will be working with Ascendigo in this instance, which is a really great way to, again, provide meaningful employment for kids who may otherwise be challenged to find employment and placement. I wanted to comment on, just echo Auden's earlier note of keeping CPW on the radar screen. You and I swapped some notes on this, Ryan, but just want to make sure that we keep this alive and hold them to account for the soil and I guess perhaps water testing that will begin whenever the snow clears. Updates on regional housing. Dave Myler and Bill Lamont, they are still casting about to determine which of the Colorado River communities are interested in joining the effort that they are spearheading. At this juncture, it looks like Basalt is the only community that has in fact ponied up cash, but they are indeed refining the MOU and they expect to have that some done.
Did you say Colorado River communities?
Yeah, that's how they framed it.
Huh,
Because they're doing the Roaring Fork and the Colorado River.
Yeah.
okay.
So it's the Highway 82
so the Colorado's bigger, so it gets to be named, okay.
Yeah,
it's
so
better than naming after
they're
it.
looking at basically what seems to be gypsum to parachute
Right.
and that area. I was curious, I had understood that there was some transaction involving the Roaring Fork trailer homes. I was wondering if staff knew anything about that.
I heard that too.
Want to note?
Was it
that-
sold? Is that what?
Yeah,
That's what I
basically,
heard.
and what are the plans, if any? Want to note that, very sadly, we are celebrating the one-year anniversary of Anna Cunningham's passing this Thursday. And thank you, Pam and Ryan, for getting me a copy of the proclamation, which Sure Thing Burger wants to present. They will hold a day-long series of just kind of commemorations and remembrances, which is really very, very nice. Finally, something that Jeff and I just talked about, I'd like to ask that we review our policy on the submission and content of public comments. And I note that one of the public comments submitted and included in this week's packet is factually inaccurate and, depending upon your perspective, potentially libelous and defamatory. So I'd like to see if we could just take a look at that and see if we have a policy, and if so, whether we might not want to kind of make it more robust.
Thanks, Bill.
You're very welcome.
And if I could just comment on that real quickly, I think it's been the general practice to allow some public comment to be submitted in writing. And so, at council's direction, we could review a public comment policy to see if there's any changes that we might want to make, including whether or not to allow that sort of thing or to require that all public comment be made in person. So that would be up to the council.
Okay. Others? Yes, Jeremy.
I'd like to thank Holy Cross for their event that they hosted. It was, I can't remember if it was before this meeting or the meeting before, but it was a fantastic turnout at the Capitol Creek Brewery. And I am just so grateful for how involved Holy Cross is. And I want to put it out there to the public that there are openings on their board. And so you can go to their website to submit to become a board member and be involved with that. And then I would also, so I always give a shout out to some part of the town. And this meeting, I'd really like to commend the planning department. I asked a lot of questions this last week, and I really appreciate the time that you took to answer my questions and proactively outreach. And I recognize the incredible amount of workload that you are accomplishing. So kudos to all of you. And when I walk by with my dogs, I see everyone smiling inside, and that's a really good sign.
They're smoking dope.
Oh, that's it.
I did have one other thing too. I don't know if everybody here got.
Defamation, libel.
I'm a short timer, whatever, sue me. If everybody got this email, but I got an email from the library saying they have openings in both Pitkin County and Eagle County, on their board. So that just popped back into my head. Anything else?
I have a thing to remind council members about. There's going to be a transportation, housing, and jobs connecting the dots in a changing region. And it's a summit for elected officials in the Roaring Fork and Colorado River Valleys. It's going to be held in Glenwood on March 12th. From 11:45 to 5 p.m. Everyone was sent a reminder about it, and we would like to have RSVPs this evening if possible, so we can let them know how many people to anticipate. But they're going to be talking about where are we, challenges and opportunities in a changing region, the view from here, local perspective on regional issues. They'll have some group breakout activities and that sort of thing. Dave Heshniak? Is that how I pronounce? Am I pronouncing that? Yeah, thank you.
I worked in the big counties.
Yes. So he's asking join other local officials in the Roaring Fork and Colorado River Valleys to discuss the region's economy, housing market, and transportation system, and the connections between them.
Thank you, Pam. I think we all got that, and keep looking at our calendars probably, like all of us have to.
Yeah, if anybody wants to go, please let us know as soon as possible.
Ryan, managers report.
Yes, so I have a couple things. So we've set the date for our Hard to Recycle event and have cooperation with the middle school campus to be able to locate, because we need some space to be able to spread out. So that's going to be on April 18th And we'll start putting out more information on that so that folks know exactly what they can and can't bring, but it's going to be quite a bit that you're able to bring along for that. So a quick update there. I've been getting some information through Eagle County Public Health with regard to the coronavirus and all that they're doing to prepare for that. So they're in touch with state officials, and they've put out quite a bit of information at the staff level, and then are about to release a public notice essentially on it, with the anticipation that it's probably not going to stop internationally, would likely come in the United States more vigorously in the near future. A lot of what they are releasing with regard to what you can do to protect yourself are pretty common sense things that you do to deal with flu and cold. But that'll be coming out. I'll keep you all apprised of that. One thing that Greg, Chief Knott, had done was went online about a month ago looking for PPE, the personal protective equipment, masks essentially, and they are very hard to come by right now. And they've gone up in price by an incredible amount, as you might imagine. So, Eagle County's trying to source those types of things as well. So right now, it's just kind of public information, so no new news. They're just trying to stay ahead of it.
Can I add anything? So, I did a bunch of research for some of my employers and found that N95 construction masks, the particulate masks, you can get them at the hardware stores, and they are still in wide supply, and they're not inflated prices. So it's an N95 particulate mask, and they are more effective than the surgical masks.
Are they the ones that you put on and they have like two breathers on them?
No.
Oh, okay.
So they're white, like
Okay.
they're for sanding
Oh, okay.
and those kind of particulates. And so there are soft ones that are mesh, and you can change the filters out in them. And then there's also the white ones, and you can buy them a pack of, they're like less than $3 a piece.
Okay.
And you can buy a pack of 10 for $20.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see. Also, we are working on our 2019 accomplishments. I've been working with staff on that over the last couple weeks. So I was this afternoon just kind of putting the finishing touches on my draft for that. So as you recall, last year I did that, and it was basically complementing what we've done to further the completion of the strategic framework. So we'll get that out in the probably in the next couple weeks. That'll be finalized, and then the last thing I was going to mention was sales tax. So Christy did some work on that and added that into our packet, but last year's sales tax ended up coming in favorably. So we had budgeted for 5.5% increase last year, and we came in about 4% above that. A lot of that we attribute to the economy doing well here locally, with lodging on the uptick. Retail sales are strong, certainly in the building industry as well. But also we are really seeing those online sales come on, and we're capturing a lot of those. And just in the January sales tax report, Christy identified a lot of new retailers, including, you'll see that folks like Amazon have multiple accounts, so it's not just a single. So Christy, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you recall for year over year for the month of January what the uptick was? Uptick was like 16%.
Oh, it was, I believe it was over 20%.
20%.
Yeah, year over year, and a lot of that was Amazon, eBay, ABC, Supply, some other big retailers that are online, so.
So it'll be interesting to track that over time, because obviously there was a lot of leakage because of those online sales, but that's good news for us here locally.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, let me make sure I didn't skip something on the front. Okay, item 7A is Resolution 3, Series of 2020, a resolution of the town approving an instant runoff voting procedures manual and instant runoff Counting Judges Manual for use in the April 7, 2020 regular municipal election. Pam and Jeff, whoever wants
Mind
to
if
go.
I start out real quick? So as part of the, April 7th election, the town of Basalt is going to be hosting an instant runoff election for the first time. Instant runoff voting was approved with the Basalt Home Rule Charter in 2002, when it was passed by the citizens of Basalt. This is the first time since the adoption of the charter 18 years ago that we'll be using this function. The charter basically reads, for election of the mayor, if more than 2 candidates are running for that office, the town shall use a procedure for instant runoff voting. The ballot shall provide a means for voters to rank all the candidates for mayor in order of preference. So the mayor's portion of this election will be determined by hand count of the ballots once they're all voted. And the resolution before council this evening seeks to approve the procedures that will guide us in this instant runoff election, the judges and also our my procedures in setting it up. Just as an aside, in the next 2 weeks, we will be posting more information on IRV, how one votes the ballot, what constitutes a correctly and incorrectly voted ballot, and other IRV information. And there's also a candidates forum sponsored by the Chamber on Monday the 2nd, March 2nd, from 6 to 8 at the Basalt Regional Library. Anybody has any questions about instant runoff, they're welcome to call me or email me.
Would it be possible to at least get out a quick and dirty on information about what ballots will be accepted versus not accepted? Because I think that we just don't want ballots coming in at all, any that aren't right.
So as part of the documents that you received this evening, in the Instant Runoff Voting Procedures Manual, toward the back, there are numerous types of ballots like this that show you correctly and incorrectly voted ballots. You can
That's
run
so
through
helpful.
those and see what's there. I don't know what page it starts on. I don't have a numbered set
Like
of
page
pages.
39.
But they will show you overvoted, if you have an overvoted first ranking, an overvoted second ranking, a properly marked ballot.
That comes with the ballot?
I'm sorry?
That comes with your ballot?
This will not come with your ballot.
Okay.
This is going to be posted online, though. People will be able to take a look at them.
That's great. That's what I was gonna ask next. if
As
it
part
could
of
be
this
posted
procedures
online.
manual.
Pam, did you want to mention your mailer?
Oh, that's a good
well.
one. Thank you. Yes, we are preparing a mailer as well that will describe instant runoff voting and describe to people how to vote their ballots. You know, not to skip the middle one, not to skip rows, but to vote in succession for the candidates of their choice.
But you don't have to vote for 3.
You don't have to vote
You don't
for
have to
3.
vote
You
for
can vote
two.
for 2.
Okay.
You can vote for 1.
Got, okay. Thank you.
And I may have, I don't know if Jeff has some comments on the more logistical or the more legal side of the resolution.
I think you summed it up pretty well. The 2 manuals, one's for the judges to use, so
Right.
when they're counting, if something comes up, all right, this is what we follow, this is how we count things. I mean, there's one paragraph in the town charter, and there's an unbelievable amount of information out there about instant runoff voting. And, I mean, there's formulas in this manual to determine what happens in the event of a tie, and there's still uncounted provisional ballots and things like that. So there's a lot of detail that has gone into that, and has been used in similar format in other communities, so been tested out. We'll be well served by it.
Great. Okay, so I guess what you are requesting from us is approval of this resolution?
I am,
Forward?
I am.
Anybody have additional questions or a motion? Yes, sir.
I did just have a question. I was kind of curious, since this has evidently been in place since 2002, why didn't, is it just because we had never had this circumstance that we never needed a resolution before?
Correct.
Got it. And then I was just curious about the judges. Who appoints them? How many are there? How do they serve?
So I will be appointing the judges. I have my standard 4 that I've used in many elections in the past, and I'm seeking probably up to 8 more, between 6 and 8 more judges, because of the hand count. It's, So we won't have results as quickly as we have had in the past. I have 4 names of judges currently that I will be contacting, and I may need up to 4 more. Great, so,
And a whole lot of coffee.
and a whole lot of coffee.
Yes.
Anything else, Bill, on that? Okay.
No, follow up with Jeff.
Motion? Motion?
I move to, the town council approve resolution number 3, series of 2020.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good to go. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
I know this is extra hard work on top of the stressful election situation for you anyway.
Exciting.
Okay, 8A, first reading of ordinance number 8, an ordinance of the Town Council of Basalt granting an extension of vested rights for Lot B of Mabel subdivision in Basalt. Watkins, there you are.
Yes, and the applicant, Mark Elise, is not here with me today. He wasn't able to make it, but he did review the ordinance that we have drafted for y'all, and he's good with it. So if there's something that I can't answer or something uncomfortable, you guys are obviously able to continue this on to the next date, and he should be able to be there. So what Mr. Elise is looking for is to extend the term of his vested rights. They expire on March 23rd, this coming month, but he would like to extend them by 1 year, so March 23rd of 2021. And what that'll allow him to do is have a little bit more time for him or a future owner to draw up plans and obtain a building permit. And that's what the vested rights period is for obtaining the building permit. And so the planning department's been contacted by some interested buyers because the lot is for sale. But obviously by March 23rd, no one's going to be able to get in a building permit, so that's why he's looking for this.
Okay. Questions?
Are there fees related to Mr. Elise's request for this extension or for the work of the planning department?
So you're asking just for the extension application?
Correct.
We're just going to charge him. We charge him our kind of staff fees, our time.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
How often do we come up with something like this? If we don't grant this extension, does it just roll back into the original lot?
Well, in this particular case, the zoning of it requires a site plan approval. And so once that site plan approval expires, he would essentially have no uses by right. Someone else would have to come along and start the process to get a site plan approval.
Anybody else? Motions?
Mayor, I move that the town council approve ordinance number 8, series of 2020 on first reading and set the public hearing and second reading for March 10th of 2020.
Excellent job. Can I get an excellent second?
Second.
The guy with his mouth full. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent, thank you. Okay, the rest of these all relate to the Basalt River Park development actions. 3 ordinances and 1 resolution. The first is 8B, public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 5, an ordinance of the town of Basalt approving amendments to the municipal code of the town, amending the town code section 16-30, community serving commercial CSC zone district related to the Basalt River Park development. James.
And if we could please just take a quick second to get Bruce Kimmel on the phone. We have to.
So James, are you just gonna put it on the floor?
You want this?
Jody. Yes. ¿Qué pasa?
Muy bien.
Bien.
You can move it over if you'd rather. I mean, sure.
Pardon.
4.
Going over there.
At least it's not like, you know what I mean?
Feel it, maybe.
It's on fire or something.
sure.
We don't have to.
Nice dress, Jenna.
What anyone.
Did you? God.
That's normal.
Bruce, it's James, we have you on speakerphone with council, and we're
This is normal.
starting the public hearing. Can you hear us?
Is he muted? Oh, there you go.
I can now, yeah.
Okay, great, we're starting the public hearing here.
Welcome, Bruce. This is all of us, plus applicants and some people out there in the audience, some staff. Thanks for coming.
It's good to be here.
Hi.
Okay, James.
Thank you. This evening, we do have the applicant team here. We've got Tim Belinsky with Basalt River Park LLC. We've got Jody Edwards, and we've got Jenna Moe from the Art Base, and we've got Rich Carr from Cuddle Car Yaw. And on the phone, we have Bruce Kimmel from Ellers, who's the town's financial consultant. And Robin Schiller is sitting behind.
Oh, hi, Robin.
From CCY. So staff suggests taking the next 4 items together as they all relate to the Basalt River Park development application. So we have continued public hearing and second reading of 3 ordinances associated with the Basalt River Park application on the former Pan and Fork Mobile Home Park site. There's also a resolution that's being introduced, which is item number E, and it's related to the River Park Development Art Base RETA. As discussed at the
James,
last...
let me ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
I read the first one into the record. Do you want the other ones?
Yeah, we probably
Since
should
we're
read the other
opening them all
3.
at once, okay.
Sounds good.
Then the second in this bunch is 8C, public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 6 of 2020, an ordinance of the town approving the Basalt River Park Development Final Plan application and associated land use actions on Lot 1 of the Basalt Community Campus subdivision. 8D is public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 7 of 2020, an ordinance of the town of Basalt approving contracts to buy and sell real estate with Basalt River Park LLC for the purchase of future parcels A and D park parcel, and an option to purchase future parcel E arts parcel, and of the Basalt River Park. And do you want me to also just hit the reso since, okay.
please.
And 8E, resolution number 2 of 2020, a resolution of the town of Basalt establishing the art base as the recipient of the portion of the River Park Development Real Estate Transfer RETA funds intended for a nonprofit visual arts organization. Okay,
Thank you. As the mayor indicated, ordinance number 5 is an ordinance that would approve of code amendments to the CSC zone district to accommodate the River Park development. The amendments include adding a restaurant of 3,000 square feet as an anchor use on the property in the CSC zone district. It also would add free market residential as a permitted use for this specific property in the CSC zone district. And then it would amend the maximum size for residential units to accommodate the proposed sizes in the River Park development. And then, as the mayor indicated, ordinance number 6 is an ordinance that would approve of the Basalt River Park CSC site plan review and associated land use actions. This ordinance starts on page 103 of your packet. And then we've got ordinance number 7, which is an ordinance that would approve of the purchase and sale agreements for the town to purchase the park property, and a second position agreement for the town to purchase the Art Center property in the case that the art base didn't have the funding at the time of closing. And that starts on page 126 of your electronic packet. And then we've got resolution number 2, which is a new resolution that's being introduced tonight. It would establish the intention to allocate the 0.25% real estate transfer assessment for the arts to the art base, and it would direct staff to work with the art base on a financial framework similar to the framework that was established for TACA and structured for TACA. This starts on page 155 of your packet. And so the development, as was presented in detail at the last meeting, is a mixed-use development. Consists of 24 residential units, including 4 affordable housing units that are rent capped, and then 11,500 square foot of commercial office space that's proposed in the Maker Office Building, which is this mixed-use building on the site plan. And then 6,000 square foot for the art base and 3,000 square foot restaurant on the perimeter of the park, located right here. The proposal also is to sell approximately 1 acre of the property on the eastern extent, located right here, to the town of Basalt at a discounted rate for an expansion to the Basalt River Park. So at the last meeting, the council approved ordinances number 5, 6, and 7 on the first reading. And as part of the deliberations, council discussed additional conditions and requested additional information from staff and the applicants. So we've got additional information in your packet materials. There is a summary of remaining discussion items, and it looks like this. It starts on page 162 in your electronic packet. There's also applicant responses to some of the discussion items and some of the requests, and that starts on page 157 of your packet. So this evening, staff would like to briefly go through the additional information that's provided, as well as some condition options that are in your ordinances. And then the applicants will provide comments, and we'll take public comments because these are continued public hearings. So to go into the remaining discussion items that are on that summary sheet, starting on page 162 in your packet. The first item is the allowance for banks and real estate offices in the development. There was concerns about the potential for banks and real estate offices at the first reading. And so the applicants have proposed to allow for banks in the development, but to limit the ability to have real estate offices so that real estate offices would not be permitted in the first 25 feet of the development abutting Two Rivers Road. There is a draft condition that's in your ordinance. It's condition number 8, and it basically does not permit banks or real estate offices within that first 25 feet from Two Rivers Road. However, there's an alternative condition that represents the applicant's proposal, which would allow for banks anywhere in the development, but limit the real estate offices. Other topics that came up at the last meeting was a restriction on combining
James, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Just how you think this would work best for all of us. Do you want to just wade through these all together or try to do them one at a time as you're going through them?
It'd be good if we could just get
Go through 'em
the
once?
presentation, because then
Okay.
we'll kind of reiterate the restaurant conditions and then
Okay.
the language options at the end. So I'll go quickly.
fine.
Yeah.
And then we'll take each one after the public hearing. We'll zero in on each one.
Okay.
And so restrictions on combining residential units, that came up at the last meeting. The applicants agreed to this restriction to prohibit combining of residential units and adding entries between units. And so that has been included as a condition. It's condition number 6 in your ordinance. Other topics, art base and restaurant deliveries. The applicants have proposed that several spaces in front of the surface area between the restaurant and the art base be short-term spaces in order to allow for loading for both the art base and the restaurant. Larger delivery trucks that would make deliveries to the site would have to park a bit remotely and hand truck goods to the site, similar to what they do on Midland Avenue. So that was addressed in the applicant's comments. There was questions about the value of parking spaces. There was a question about the cost of providing parking, and staff has tried to answer that in the summary. Basically, the town's cash in lieu for parking is about $15,000 a space. But as part of the rebalancing of costs that was discussed at the sketch plan review, the applicants are taking on about $600,000 in costs towards Two Rivers Road improvements. So staff believes that that kind of well exceeds the cost of 17 parking spaces in the reduction request, if cash in lieu were provided. Other topics include the character of the restaurant. There was a question about the character of the proposed restaurant. The applicants have explained the proposed character in their letter, and they can go into this in more detail as part of their comments. Other topics included interim construction fencing. There was a concern from some council members about the aesthetics of the existing construction fence and also kind of the status of the existing construction fence. Staff has included language in the draft conditions that would require the applicants to come up with a plan in association with the art base for improving the aesthetics of the construction fence in the interim until the project kind of gets rolling, and has that for a TRC review and approval as part of that. One of the big topics, the interim use of the restaurant property. There was the idea of having food trucks in the interim that was put out there at the last meeting. And we have a slide that kind of addresses this. The applicants were agreeable to the concept of having food trucks in the interim. And so we have a condition in there. It's condition number 26 in your ordinance number 6. That would require the applicants to have utilities to the site and construct a pad for up to 3 food trucks on the restaurant parcel before the earlier of July 1st of 2022 or a CO on the 8th dwelling unit in the project. So basically 2 years out in terms of a time frame. It would require that the applicants also contract with at least 1 food truck during the summer months until a building permit is pulled on a regular restaurant facility on the site. So that's how we've tried to address that food truck idea and concept, and the applicants have been agreeable to that. There's also an optional condition that's in your ordinance that council could add to the approval that would require that the applicant provide the town a option to purchase the restaurant parcel at a discounted price in 10 years from the effective date of the ordinance if a building permit has not been issued on a restaurant on the site. So that's an option for council to look at as a backstop in terms of an alternative condition. Other topics include the affordable housing mitigation reduction to 15% for the real estate transfer assessment of 1.5%. The code, as mentioned last meeting, allows for a reduction in the residential mitigation rate from 25% of the floor area in units to 15% of the floor area in units. If an applicant grants a 1.5% real estate transfer assessment for affordable housing purposes, and that's what the applicant has proposed as part of their application. Some council members asked for an analysis of whether the real estate transfer assessment would cover the costs of 2 additional units being constructed on the site over time. And Bruce Kimmel, the town's financial analyst, has provided a memo that's included in your packet, which explains that he found that it would cover the costs of constructing a unit and kind of exceed the costs. So Bruce is on the phone for questions, so after we get through the presentation, if there are questions on that analysis, you can ask him of Bruce. Other topics include future use of the art-based property. There was a discussion at the last meeting about the potential to loosen up the requirements in terms of uses on the art-based parcel to allow for a general nonprofit use instead of just a visual arts nonprofit in the case in the future that they had to sell the property for some reason. And so staff has included an alternative condition that council could add to the approval if you choose to, that would allow the council to approve a general nonprofit use in the future that's community serving. But once again, it would require a council approval of the nonprofit. Other topics included water and sewer tap credits. There were questions that came up about this. Once again, it was part of the sketch plan deal points and the rebalancing of costs to make the project workable. It allowed the applicant to pay more towards the Two Rivers Road improvements as well as the public restrooms on the park parcel. So it was a mechanism to kind of rebalance the costs, and so it's still included in the approvals. And we do have Bruce here once again if we have questions on that rebalancing. And then we have vested rights. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended 3 years of vested rights with the ability to extend in the future if there's a request. The applicants had a request for 7 years at the last meeting and also at the P&Z. The applicants have revised their request to a 5 years of simple vested rights, and we've attached a condition option for the council to consider. We got that request today, so it's included in front of you. Vested rights, just as an explanation of what they are, they don't necessarily mean that upon the expiration of vested rights, the applicant's approvals go away. It just kind of vests them against changes in fees and zoning requirements. And we have Jeff queued up to maybe speak a little bit more about vested rights.
Sure. I think that's James's summary is accurate. Vested rights are the right to undertake and complete your site-specific development plan, and they insulate you from changes in the land use code. So with these approvals, the way this would be set up is that within a certain period of time of the effective date of the ordinance, certain documents, development agreement documents, would need to be prepared and finalized. From that point, the ordinance would be fully effective, and then the in the approvals in effect. There's not a lapsing period of the approvals. There's the vested rights, however, would expire after 5 years. So if there are no changes to the land use code that would affect the development plan, the developer could still undertake and complete the plan, but with the vested rights are insulated from changes to the land use code that might affect that development plan.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, Jody.
You mind if I tag on a little bit to that?
James, do you mind if Jody talks?
Go ahead.
Thanks, James. Just to add a little bit, I agree with everything Jeff just said, but to add a little bit to that, the important thing from the point of view, say from a bank who may be lending against the property, is they want to make sure that the project can be completed. So, for example, if there's a code amendment that lowers the height or greatly increases the affordable housing requirements or any of several other things, and all of a sudden the vested rights expire and somebody walks in and tries to get a building permit, yeah, the approvals are still there, but they may be subject to the code changes. And most bankers aren't thrilled about lending on short-term vested rights when this project is going to take a number of years to build out.
Okay.
So that's one of the concerns, and that's why we're asking for 5 years here.
Okay. I think we're just going to follow James's lead and go through them all at once, and then we may dig into that one a little bit more when we get there.
So just to kind of reiterate the conditions that have decision options for the council's evaluation this evening, at least the way staff has set them up. You have condition number 8 regarding the banks and real estate offices and an alternative condition associated with that one. You have condition number 13 regarding whether the council wants the ability for the art base to have flexibility to sell to general nonprofits, and that would be to add alternative language if you're comfortable with that. And then you have condition number 26, which is the option to add the alternative language to have the town have a potential to purchase the restaurant parcel after the 10 years from the effective date of the ordinance. And then finally is condition number 32 that has the option related to the 3 versus the 5 years of the vested rights requirements. So staff would suggest asking questions of staff if you have them, and then going to applicant comments.
Public.
Well, it's applicant first.
Or you can have applicant
Yeah.
first, and I'll queue up their presentation.
Okay, do we want to just go ahead and let the applicant present before we have questions from us? Because I would just as soon keep this rolling, and then we can get to the public hearing.
Okay?
Yeah.
Great, thanks. There are a few points to address as current events here, plus several follow-up points from our meeting 2 weeks ago. I believe that we can get through tonight's information in a pretty straightforward manner. James has highlighted the items that changed on the ordinance conditions from last time, which come with staff's approval. These are edits or revisions that we, staff and applicant, are in agreement with. Let's hone in on the 4 areas that have alternative language options, which we are asking for your consensus, so I'll speak to just those. Real estate brokerage offices and banks were questioned by council with the suggestion that we consider removing the uses from the project. We have proposed limiting real estate brokerage offices from the prime corner and would like to leave banks on the list of allowed uses. Based on our experiences of late dealing with some banks coming into the market, we don't anticipate having a new bank in the downtown area in the near term, but we also don't see that if one came into place here, that it would be a problem. Banks generate pedestrian traffic, are open during retail hours, and tend to be very interested in promoting community events through their financial support. Alpine Bank at Willits has been a godsend for us over the years for their support of concerts and other events. Art Base's building, if ever relinquished or sold, would be conveyed to a nonprofit, community-serving organization rather than solely to a visual arts organization. This broader language makes sense to us also, and we hope it never happens. Food trucks as an interim step if necessary. The vibrancy created and the desire to complete the park edge with the restaurant building is being supplemented with having food trucks on the parcel during at least the summer months after the park has been built out. This is a true win-win idea, and we're pleased to commit to the condition. It's our view that the new food truck plan now gives us a good answer for how to activate the park with food and drink and vibrancy, and a place to enjoy the park and socialize prior to the new restaurant actually being in place. That being the case, the alternative language in section 26 is potentially preempted, and we think moot now by the food truck solution. This alternative provision where the town would have a purchase option for the restaurant parcel in 10 years seems to us to be out of sync with the direction provided last year by council when we talked through and passed on the concept of a food and beverage hall as a community building. Council expressed that it wanted to steer clear of getting into restaurants or event businesses. That being said, I am pleased to report that we are now in some exciting discussions with restaurant operators at this point and anticipate getting the restaurant done along with the rest of the project the summer of 2023. This is really interesting. Some early inquiries that we made for restaurant prospects which didn't gain traction have now gotten focused with sincere interest. The process of obtaining land use approvals is now catching the eye of some who were earlier skeptical and are saying to us now that they didn't want to waste their time on the idea, since now it appears we have something believable to talk about. We may be figuring it out. Through my years working in this market, we have activated areas with events, farmer markets, food tastings, races, and have had plenty of interaction with food truck vendors. They are ready to set up if we provide the location and they know they can make some money. The vested rights topic. Vested rights are connected to our timeline for development. and these two things deserve attention. Let's unpack this topic. Let's clarify newspaper headlines, and let's use a letter in the council package as a productive tool and illustration. My former neighbor and someone I respect, Bernie Grauer, wrote you a letter that I think illustrates a larger problem with this topic. The letter erroneously confused the developer's intentions and timeline for building out the project with vested rights. To get into this, I first want to say that we're not seeking any kind of delay under any circumstances. There is no business sense to delaying. The land will be purchased, costs will ratchet up exponentially, and the interest clock will be ticking on millions of dollars. We need to move and move as quickly as possible. Second, our requested vested rights time deadlines in no way threatens the years-long community effort. We all have put an immense amount of energy into this process, and we will not let something like the confusion about vested rights hang us up. Third, the phasing plan for developing the project has been routinely described over the course of these meetings, and there's nothing in here that qualifies as an abrupt change in tune or a last-minute about-face. I think this is important to call out because Bernie sits on P&Z, which unanimously voted support of this work. This work hasn't changed from what P&Z approved last month. This team here in front of you has diligently worked its way through a dozen public meetings to, as I said last meeting, get it right. Through the process, we have been honest, sincerely responsive, consistent. We have been creative, professionally forthright, and transparent. We have, I think, worked as a trusted group, and we have, in turn, trusted counsel to guide us to a workable solution for the development work over the past year and a half. And with the sketch plan approval in May, we were very, very conscientious about staying very, very close to that vision. It is essentially the same plan, and staff has also confirmed that to be the case. For Bernie to accuse us now of changing the tune is not accepted by this group, nor by me. For Bernie's commitment to this town is admirable. His devotion of time to community work is not to be underplayed. But I believe he is off base with his letter. He mistook vested rights for the development plan and then made false accusations stemming from that confused premise. Vested rights is a backstop to protect the town. Vested rights do not dictate the plan for development. And if they need to be shortened for the sake of public appearance, we are willing to make them 5 years, which was communicated to staff earlier and James spoke to. We had already advocated 5 years for the bulk of the work, with the art base and restaurant receiving their additional time. We can put the whole program to 5 years vesting to ensure this gets resolved and simplified.
Thanks, Tim.
Now, if we can go quickly to the timeline that illustrates where we are, as hazy as it is.
Yeah, just go
helps.
bigger.
That's a little bit better.
View.
That's great, thanks. If you scroll down a little bit, what we'll see is the phasing plan that that's in the board package from day one of the final application, and shows the three phases as they are in the red, the blue, second phase, and then the green, which is the art base and the restaurant as kind of independent variables out in the green. If you scroll up, James, to catch that time. What we've got is, this is the development plan. This is our target. It has been. This is the work that we want to accomplish. On the right side, what you see in the green goes with the green of the map. The blue and the red go with the blue and the red of the map. What you see is a completion date of June 2023. That's 2 years ahead of what the vested rights period deadline would be if it were a 5-year timer. The way we look at it is, this first area on the left where it says park on the top, and you see the phase 1 work, which is the red starting, that hits off next summer. The town will be in the 1 acre and areas of the park as that design gets pressed out and activated. And we begin phase 1, which is in the red, and that's about a 1-year project. This is also all in my memo. And then phase 1 moves and links into phase 2 which is the maker office building, mixed-use building alongside it. It's more complex and has commercial that we'll need to activate and find buyers for. Art base and restaurant, as the green items up above, I have a shorter timeline. The art base is about a year and the restaurant's probably 9 months. And those follow along, the restaurant starting in the fall of 2022 and the art base starting in the summer of 2022. And Jenna has reviewed this with her group. The food trucks, with the asterisks, if they're needed, if we haven't come sooner with the restaurant, are really the summer of 2022. So that's all in the conditions of approval right now, in terms of the food truck timeline and coming online. Feel free to come back to that at any point later. The town park and phase 1 get underway, simply put, as soon as possible, which is spring of next year. The site will be sold, platted, excavated for utilities, built up to be out of floodway, and then we go vertical. The building permitting will take time, as will the rest of the development planning, engineering, legal, financial work, all meshed with managing our way around winter conditions as much as possible. Phase 1 will take the 1 year from groundbreaking to build, and phase 2 another year. There's no reason other than market demand to do anything other than link them together. Construction teams want continuity and a predictable outlook of their work. Plus, it's important to avoid multiple mobilizations. For the construction work, it is highly likely that they will make it worth our while to stay on the job through completion of the entire project. As for market demand, what I mean is that we need to rally buyers for these spaces, both commercial and residential, so that the bank will sign up to lend money for the project. We have already been in the market on the restaurant space, which seems to now be paying off with serious inquiries, and the rest of the project will get rolled out too. The marketing will also necessitate our issuing a valid timeline for the delivery of these spaces. So all of this gets very public once we have our work lined out. And just like I said earlier about the restaurant, this project site has had so much negative press that has created an air for people to be fairly critical that it would ever get approved, meaning we now need to engage with prospects with approvals in hand and get people on board as new members of this neighborhood. With clearance to proceed from the town, we can get busy communicating with credibility and substance, as compared to having a plan that was working its way through a public approvals process. What I hope you sense from me as we talk through these matters is a careful, detailed, practical approach to development. I hope you see me as a steady hand, because that's what I try to provide. My job is to manage and control risk. My job is to guide this along to a successful groundbreaking and a successful ribbon cutting, and on time, that is predictable and doable within the time that Lynn Mace and others like her, who have hung in there over lots of years, can actually enjoy the results. I really look forward to having a drink with Lynn on the patio, overlooking the river, and being part of a huge gathering of people in the park enjoying this special place. That's all I've got. And so Robin's going to take you through some of these slides. It's not very lengthy at all. And Rich will wrap it up.
There's a lot of meat there, a lot of things to digest, and I know everybody's anxious to get into your comments. So very quickly, we just wanted to show you what a couple of these topics look like or could look like. We talk about food trucks, and what that means is some visual excitement. Food trucks in the park which would support events and activities in the park. Food trucks which can be all kinds of different designs with areas for dining around them, and which can really create a festive atmosphere. We think that's a wonderful idea. Another topic which has been talked about and not maybe visualized too much is what might happen on the art-based site, and I'd like to invite Jenna to talk a little bit about this with us. What might happen in any time period before the art base actually starts construction, which has been a council question.
Great. Hi, guys. Thank you again. So fundraising has commenced, and best case scenario, if we're able to break ground sooner than expected, ideally interim art isn't a need, though we understand the efficiencies of building simultaneous and how timelines work. So if we stick to the target of summer 2022, then there'll be one summer of site activation with art, and depending on the nature of that project, could stay through the winter. And this slide does a nice job showing some of the opportunities. We have a curator who's already begun thinking about these opportunities, whether it's sculpture or activities or land works. Chris Erickson, an artist in the Valley, has containers that he can bring different places. The Aspen Art Museum activated their site with ping pong tables that were artful. Rick LaFaro and I were talking today about collaborative trout sculptures. Peter McBride did a project in France with it's the middle images on this slide, with images dealing with water on the fence. I assure you, whatever we choose will celebrate community and place and pay tribute to our exhibition's mission of student, emerging, and established artists, and embrace the energy of what's to come on the space. I think we should all be so proud. This is so exciting for our community. The arts community is abuzz. I mean, there's a lot going on with TACA and the Art Base, the Buyer Center in Aspen. This valley is on the map in a major way, and this town is really embracing arts, and I just think it's incredible. Art translates through space and time and gives us the ability to talk about ideas in new ways and celebrate all different types of people and backgrounds, and I think it's just a really wonderful opportunity to put art literally in the heart of our town. So, thank you.
Thanks, Jenna.
These last art examples, by the way, begin to bridge into one of the other topics that council has asked about, which is construction fencing and what might happen around a construction site during the months of construction. These are just a range of examples that we've found from other places, very colorful. The one on the lower right is actually plastic cups placed into a chain link fence, and the color of the cups creates a pattern. The one on the left is an example where maybe kids or students at the art base could paint on tarps that would then be attached to a fence. Lots and lots of other examples that have been done throughout the world. Very colorful, meaningful, and we think that that is one way that the public would really quickly see that this project is a reality and is moving forward from what we've had there in the past. Rich, is there anything else you'd like to say? You've been involved in this for a long time. And end our presentation here.
Well, I'm going to be a little redundant, but I'll be very brief. I'm quite excited about hopefully getting close or to the finish line. And I just wanted to congratulate everyone here. We've all worked, it's been almost 2 years. We've been working with Tim on this, and I think we've been in this process for about 18 months. Tim mentioned earlier we've been well over a dozen meetings with you in the P&Z. And I think this is a very good balanced project. I know we've talked all around it from every direction, and I am thrilled to hopefully get this to be real. I think it's time for Basalt, it's time for the art base, and I think it's really terrific. So, and we're very proud to be a part of it, so thank you.
Thank you, development team. Any more comments from anybody on the applicant? Yes.
I don't know if now's the appropriate time, but I have a couple of minor comments on the conditions. When you get there, if you want them now, I'll give them to you now.
I mean, why don't you go ahead and give them now, just because when you are finished with your presentation, we're gonna go straight to the public, so they don't have to wait all night.
My first concern is at the end of condition number 26, where it has this alternative language for the town to buy at a discounted price in 10 years. My concern there is that condition not run with the land. In other words, if somebody buys this property in 3 or 4 or 5 years, they shouldn't have to sell it to you at a discount in 10 years if their financing gets delayed or for some other reason they haven't pulled a building permit yet. So that's one issue.
We'd ask that not be accepted anyway.
Yeah, we're asking that it not be there, as Tim said,
Right.
but if you're gonna consider it, I got a problem with it. And then at the end of 29, I think it is, the highlighted language there, if a building permit has not been issued for the restaurant in 7 years, the town may enter into the restaurant property and use the financial security established to construct an interim facility. I have no idea how that would work. Are you proposing that, I mean, is the proposal here that you would build a restaurant, Tim would still own the land.
Let's get staff to answer that one, so we can put that one to bed right now.
Well, there could be a range, but we have, since sketch plan had the $250,000. So in the interim, for the first, from 2022 to that 7 years, we can put food trucks. But then we can go ahead and spend our money on the site. You know, it could be something as simple as what Butch had on Merino Park, or what he has over there at Heather's, which actually he has little sheds and buildings. It could be something more like the concession stand at the Snowmass Club, which is just a little bit more elaborate, but is open. Maybe a less expensive version of what Harry Teague had originally planned. But, we have $250,000 at that point that we can spend, and so it was just trying to maybe enhance that idea of the food trucks.
Okay, to me, that raises a lot of questions. Who gets the rent? Who owns what? Is there a land lease that needs to be negotiated between the town and the landowner? It just seems like this is a problem waiting to happen.
I think what's intended there is the penalty of the $250,000 letter of credit, which it feels like it would be a pretty good motivator to
Yeah.
get moving, but
Yeah.
how it's used.
I was reading through this and I was like, whoa, there's a lot of questions unanswered here.
Okay.
So,
Anything else from the applicant?
No,
Okay.
thank you, Madam
We
Mayor.
are going to, this is public hearing, everybody, and it's public hearing on several items, so, you probably don't have the packet in front of you, but basically just think in terms of this application for the park. So we'll open the public hearing at 7:20 almost, and if you could come up to the microphone if you have comments regarding this application, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Somebody over here will give you a little reminder if 3 minutes are up. And we will not be able to deliberate on this until this public hearing is over. So I'm not trying to rush you, but I'm just saying we may not be able to finish tonight if we go too long. So please start coming up and just state your name at the microphone and let us know what you're thinking.
Good evening. My name is Rick Stevens.
Hi, Rick.
I've lived in Basalt for quite a while, and I've been engaged in this discussion for a long time. I wanted to enter in the record a letter to the editor that was written in November of 2017, and I wanted to echo some of Tim's comments, and I hope you invite me with Lynn to have a cocktail. This was a letter that Mayor Whitsitt wrote to the paper on November 8th of 2017, describing a vision for Basalt's River Park. And as I read through this, and people tease me because I have a large cardboard box at home full of stuff like this. But it is a target that I think the Belinsky team has hit, maybe not dead in the center, but pretty darn close to a bullseye. It starts off by talking about a vision emerging for measured and proportional residential and commercial development, a visitor center, art complex, surrounded by community gathering places on Basalt's riverfront. The vision is to merge nature and culture. The vision would encourage private development of a community arts center, a restaurant, brew pub, affordable housing, visitor center, and free market housing to support the economics. We would commit to supporting events and attractions so the park would activate the restaurant and the arts center year-round. I really applaud Jen Moe. My son has been involved in the art shows at the Art Base, and it's been a great opportunity for him. The other recreational activities that are highlighted on our part of it, fountains, boulder walls, all kinds of potential. The important piece here, I think, was that potential partners were becoming interested to build this vision. And I think Tim is positioned right now with his team and what he's presented to the community to accomplish this project and get it built. I think the key to the case too, though, is sort of towards the end here. And I've seen, I think, 4 council turnovers since 2010 when this came to the table with Mr. McVoy. And I would really I'm sure the new elected officials would just as soon not have to, you know, rehash this stuff. So I'm hopeful it'll get finished here and get to the finish line, as Mr. Carr says. One of the things that really struck me is by completing this process, we could turn our attention to other needs that have not been solved by this plan on this parcel. So I think there's a lot of pent-up stuff in the pipeline that needs attention that maybe could get that attention, given that this crosses the finish line. So congratulations to you guys. You got a couple more meetings left as a council. I hope you can get through this tonight. And thank you, Tim, for bringing it to the table. And I think the community is reached the compromise that you've been looking for, and everyone seems happy with this, so I don't see a lot of reasons not to do it. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Rick. Wow, I don't have a box of stuff like this. Okay, who's next? Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you? I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Molly Peacock, and I've recently joined the Art Base Board. And I just want to start off by thanking all of you for your time and service to this community. I do have a really good idea of the amount of time this particular project has taken, and which means less time from your home lives, so I'll keep my comments very brief too. Basically, I joined this board and I'm committing my time because I'm so excited by the great work Jenna and the entire staff are doing at the Art Base. I'm a professional artist, and over the past few years, I've really seen that the Art Base offers so much to the community of Basalt. And personally, as a resident of Snowmass Village, I see it emerging as a leading organization up and down the valley. So I'm particularly excited by this opportunity before us tonight to approve a new building within the context of the new development proposal. And I just want to let you know that I am 100% behind it. And given your interest in getting this project going in a timely manner, I agree, and I'm motivated to spend my own time, energy, and money, as I'm sure others in this valley will also commit toward that goal. So again, thanks so much for your consideration.
Thanks, Molly. That's appreciated. Hey, Merkster.
Hey. So I'm Mike Mercatoris, and I'm with Slifer Smith and Frampton Commercial and Entrepreneurial Real Estate. And we're actually the brokers there listing the restaurant parcel. And I just want to stand up and say thanks to you guys for going through all this. Our goal is to work with the next generation of entrepreneurs within the valley, whether that's building owners and landowners, and connecting them with the correct tenants, or in this case, hopefully someone who's going to be able to purchase this restaurant. That's why Tim brought me on for this project. I know some people had some concern about the valuation of the building. And what I can assure you is that I've been through it with the banks already. We know the value's there. When we value a restaurant, it's based on a lease per square foot. So when we talk about leases versus mortgage, and in this case, we have the opportunity to offer this building for sale. Someone can actually control their destiny and build equity, which is not something that usually happens in these scenarios in our valley. This building lands within the average rents in the area of downtown Basalt right now, with the way if you're breaking it out compared to a mortgage. As a matter of fact, with a mortgage, you actually come in a little bit lower than what the rent would be if you're going on average rents in downtown Basalt. So with the infrastructure that's going in, I think it's a great project. We have several great prospects, and our focus again is to work with local entrepreneurs, local restaurateurs, and find someone who's really going to make it an amenity for the town. And yeah, so.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Others? Hello.
Hello, my name's David Kelly. I wanted to echo the thanks to P&Z and Council. This has been a tough process. I've lived in Basalt for the last 25 years, and this is, to me, the kind of the most exciting project that's happened to Basalt. I think the mix that's going on here is really vibrant and well considered. Having downtown housing mixed with the restaurant, the park, the art base, it's just kind of neat and, to me, ideal. So my personal bias is the art base. When I saw how much traction this was gaining and the ability to kind of expand all the operations and the mentoring programs, and that this could all be part of the new development, I got on board, joined the board, and I just want to be able to take credit for part of what's happening. No, this is really, mentoring is near and dear to my heart. I think it's critical for our youth, and having a neat, safe place where they can come and get experience and education is really unique for a town of this size. And then being able to have visiting art programs and displays just add something really, really critical for Basalt. I know there's some discussion about the RITAs, and I don't know how much that's been discussed, but I know how critical that is for the art-based funding, and so I'm as much of that can come our way, I'd really love that. So anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. Others? Great, I guess everybody's just happy. That's wonderful. Okay, well then I'm gonna close the public comments, which is great, and I'm gonna ask James to walk us through this, all these things that are up in the air, so we can polish this off.
So, does the council want to go into general comments before you get into the specific condition?
Well, I think we just
decisions?
want to be sort of expedient on this, so, I mean, we're gonna have to go through these anyway, so why don't we go through these, and then if the council has comments on top of that, that's great.
Sounds good. So as far as the conditions that had options that staff set up in the draft ordinance, we had the options related to condition number 8 with the bank and real estate options in the development. Once again, there's a condition in there about no banks or real estate offices adjacent to Two Rivers Road in the first 25 feet of depth. Or there's the applicant's proposal, which is banks are allowed anywhere that commercial space is in the development with limitations on real estate offices not being in the first 25 feet from Two Rivers Road.
Okay,
So if you wanna-
and banks and real estate offices are in the existing CSC zoning, they came with it or not?
They're in the C2 zone district permitted uses, so that carries over into the CSC zone district
Okay.
by reference.
So we're kind of just going outside that with just options. Okay, thoughts on this one?
I'll start because I brought this one up, and I'm of the mindset, having considered this, banks do have workforce, and they do, per Mr. Belinsky's point, provide financial incentives and granting to events, etc. At the same time, banks are anywhere USA. And in this day and age with digital banking, I'm not really supportive of actual physical locations for them when we already do have multiple banking options in downtown Basalt. We will soon become a Willits in this area. And to that, I can see a First Bank because they built what do they call them? When it's a branch. The Money Tree branch is in Carbondale, and so I could see that coming to Basalt, etc., or to the River Park. really what it comes down to is not necessarily my bias of Anywhere USA, but really wanting to enhance that this is incredible real estate next to a park, next to a river, and what do we want our citizens to encounter and experience there? I want it to be, and I envision it to be a vibrant place that you do want to go to a restaurant, you want to go to the art base and see what their exhibits are, etc. You can go to the bank anywhere, you can do your banking online. It just doesn't make that destination for me. And I feel the very exact same way for real estate, and this is what our neighboring municipalities and towns have been pushing towards as well. And I like to learn from, a wise person learns from others' mistakes, and I'd like to not make that one on this parcel.
Are you okay with an ATM?
Yes,
Okay.
totally. That's a great compromise there. Yeah.
Others on this one? On? No? Bill?
I prefer.
No. I had to keep my powder dry.
I definitely prefer option one with no banks or real estate offices, because I do believe that this is such amazing real estate to have a bank. It's just blah.
Okay, option one, if I understand it right, says you can have a bank, but it can't be on facing the road. It has to be 25 feet back, is that right?
Yeah.
So there's still banks allowed?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Both
that's another
options.
interesting thing to consider, because can a bank then have like riverfront property?
That's what I was wondering.
Which
Yeah,
is,
that would allow that, yes.
yeah, to me, that's even less savory. I can't even imagine why that would be allowed.
Guys?
Wait, so option one allows banks on the river but not on the road,
Yeah.
Right.
and option two allows no,
You're actually, is that right, James? It's, you can have banks or,
Option one does not permit banks or real estate offices on the road, but would allow them back behind.
On the river.
On the river frontage. Or option two is the applicant's proposal for banks anywhere the commercial development is allowed in the project, and no real estate offices on Two Rivers Road.
And I'm proposing option 3,
Which is no
which
banks?
is no banks, no
or
real
real
estate.
Okay.
On first floor.
On ground floor.
On the ground floor. I'm actually with that. This is prime, community asset. I agree with Jen. But I would love to have an ATM just because, you need money, right?
Jackie, clarifying question.
Yeah.
Does that mean okay on second floor
Yes, I'm okay on the second floor.
for both?
Anything, I don't care.
Good? Okay.
Ideally, I wouldn't want them anywhere, but,
But it's keep it away from
right,
prime places.
exactly.
I mean, we've actually had that conversation about downtown Basalt, and thought we got away from that completely. So I'm not sure why we're even talking about it. But we need to get it settled, so.
That seems like a compromise, right?
Is that a motion?
Is that how we're gonna do it?
I think we need to. We're not gonna.
give it thumbs, you can't do motions.
Just straw poll.
yeah, just do thumbs.
Oh, thumbs, okay,
Okay, you can't do, yeah,
okay,
motions.
okay. Is that a
So-
thumb?
No banks or real estate offices on the first floor, okay
Okay
on
with that.
second floor.
I'm okay with that.
Sure.
Sure.
And with real estate, I have a clarification question. Think about the Two Rivers Plaza. Is that what it's called, where the gun store is? And land title is on the basement level, river facing. Is land title, real estate, financial, is that in between either of those? So we could have a land title?
Yes, correct,
That's a business.
yeah.
So,
I'm okay
Can
with
we,
that.
can we pass that as a thumbs up, as a compromise?
let's do
Thank
that.
you, Auden.
Compromise.
Next.
So the second condition option relates to the art-based parcel's future potential for a general nonprofit versus a visual arts nonprofit only. And so the condition you would add, if you wanted to provide that flexibility, would allow the council in the future to approve use by a general nonprofit.
Community serving,
Community
which, could you
serving.
just quickly walk through community serving versus not community serving nonprofit?
I was afraid you were going to ask that. Community serving is just, we've got a definition, and it's generally, you know, a positive nonprofit that benefits the community. So it's pretty flexible.
Does it say in there that they must provide programming, community programming?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, because that to me would make it something that's community serving, is if it provides programming that's free, discounted, affordable.
I can imagine a nonprofit that we would be okay there if the art base decides against it. I mean, I think that it would have to be approved anyway down the road, correct?
By the council.
So, I mean, I feel comfortable
Option two.
with that one.
I'm good with option two.
Are we good with option 2?
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay. And then condition number 26 relates to adding the potential for the town to purchase the restaurant parcel in 10 years. It's not in the ordinance currently, but it could be added by the council if you wish to do so.
And one says with a restaurant and one says without?
Option 1 doesn't have it, and option 2 adds that potential to purchase in 10 years.
The language is on page 13 of the exhibit.
So it's probably not on my 13.
The food truck
No, it's on- oh, it's
interim
on there.
use is in
It's on-
all options.
It shows up.
Yeah, either way.
So
Okay.
Gay, this is the big one that Jody had an issue with. And this is one I want to get clear because I don't understand a purchase option for town is, that means we purchase the land, whatever is on there, correct? Is that what staff was thinking?
Yes.
Yes, we weren't thinking that if there's a restaurant on there or not at all, it doesn't apply.
If
Oh,
there's-
so if they
there's nothing
build
there.
something,
They build a restaurant, which,
It's over.
yeah,
Right.
it's over.
Way.
oh,
Yeah.
but if they don't, then the town would just have the option to buy it.
Right, we wouldn't have to.
At the discounted rate.
At
That's
the
What's
park
it?
rate.
At the
the
park rate?
unimproved,
It's the,
yes.
yeah, park rate
Plus 3%
that's grown
for,
by the lesser of 3% or CPI, Consumer Price Index.
Okay.
W.
Because that gets away from Jody's worry about the leasing and all this stuff. It's just a full-on purchase of the land. So, but if anything's on there, it's done, right?
And we're not
The
interested.
restaurant, right.
If a
We
building
just want
permit
them
has
to
been
build
pulled.
something.
Yeah, so you, it
Restaurant.
doesn't, even if the building isn't there, but you came in with a building permit, it doesn't apply.
Okay.
My only question about this, James, is that every other reference we have is 7 years. So they were supposed to build something, or I guess pull a permit. And this says
Pull a permit.
pull a permit. So why is this inconsistent with the 7 years, 7 years, 7 years that we reference the rest of the
How
time?
did this get in here in the first place?
Well, the idea came about in conversations between staff and,
Okay.
and it's also in a member of the public's letter about the idea as a backstop to purchase it.
I think the thought was all along that, you know, this is gonna get built. I mean, it sounds like there's some interest already happening. I believe it's going to get built, but if for some reason things happen, you know, and nothing gets built there, it would be nice to have the option to buy that chunk with either open space money and keep it plaza-ish, or regular money to be able to sell it to someone to build something. You know, it's just, I think it's just an option of if nothing is still there in 10 years, and that was what we aspired to, was having some vitality there, and it's not there, that we have an option to do something about it. So, I mean, I see no harm coming from this at all. It's a long ways out, it's past the 7 years, but it would be really, really sad if that was still sitting there with a black fence around it, yes.
And I feel that it is an incentive, and incentives can be sticks and they can be carrots. And this is a little bit of a stick of whoever purchases that land, even if it sells next week, it incentivizes that purchaser to do the job and get it done. Otherwise, then it is going to default, and they will have the financial ramification of selling it at a discount back to the town. And that's a good backstop for us to ensure that something does occur there.
Gary?
Well, my question on this was that, going back to our initial discussions, we didn't want to own any commercial piece of this parcel. We didn't want to deal with the restaurant pace or anything. So I'm just a little worried that, I guess it gives us the option, so.
It's just an option.
It's a decade from now, it's an option. So Jeff had something too, I was gonna ask you to turn.
Let's go to Jeff.
I know Jody had his hand up as well.
Oh, Jody, okay, fine.
If I understand right, Tim, as the applicant, you are in agreement or willing to accept the conditions in paragraphs 8 and 13 that we just went over, but not this one, is that right?
Why is that? Jody?
It's very likely to chill interest on behalf of the buyer. So, and it's, if I'm a buyer, I don't wanna buy a property that you can take out from under me if I'm delayed in putting my restaurant up at a discounted price.
Do you really see that as potential?
I see it as chilling the I think it has the potential to have the exact opposite effect of what you're trying to do. You want to create vitality. It has the potential to chill the market, to make people not as interested in this property.
Chill is a negative word, Jody.
I know, that was intended.
I wanna hear. What do you think? What do you think?
I think it's a good thing to have if possible, but I don't feel strongly on this one.
Bill?
I tend to agree with Gary. I mean, the notion of preserving an option for the public to participate in this contravenes the original objective, and it certainly runs counter to my own inclination to have risk devolved to the private sector and not to the public. I also have to agree with Jody that if I were on the private sector side, I'd be interested in what Mike has to say too, whether he thinks the property becomes more or less sellable. But,
He works for them, he doesn't get to comment.
okay, but I think it's the only other question then, if our ultimate goal and objective is to see the restaurant built as rapidly as possible, I don't think that this tool is the right tool to incentivize the developer, and I wonder what other tools we have contemplated if that's a concern.
This isn't one that I'm adamant either way. Whatever the majority of the council believes is the right option.
Ryan, you're the swinger, I guess.
Ooh.
Wait a minute, I didn't really say that.
Pursue that later. Option, I'm fine with option. It's fine to leave it, and if it's gonna kill their deal, who cares? I'm gonna stand up for something else.
Yeah, so.
I'm gonna move on to the next one.
Okay, so I'm in the same boat as that, is that I could live without that 10-year deal. And just, we're dealing with vested, we're dealing with so many different pieces of this puzzle, that this one is not one to hold up this whole thing on.
Okay.
So we stick with option one?
Option one, thumbs up.
I'm good.
Why are we even saying that, no purchase option?
Well, it's just, there's nothing.
As written now, it doesn't include an option to purchase.
Okay.
This would be an additional condition, and again, one that the developer's not agreeing.
Is everybody, well, let's hear thumbs up for number one. It's not my favorite. I feel like, the chill thing, scare tactic, I hate those. Okay, so I think we've finished that one though. I think we're gonna let it go.
And then, so the last one is condition number 32. It's vested rights. P and Z recommended the 3 years with the ability to come back for an extension. The applicant has requested the 5 years with the potential to come back
You
for
may
an
not get two in a
extension.
row. I don't know, Jody. Just say
I was
it.
gonna add one more comment to the vested rights discussion. As a matter of law by statute, if you get a site-specific development approval, whatever it is, you get 3 years of vested rights. And so, that was what the original language included.
Just a second.
3 years. That can be increased at the discretion of council, depending on the complexity of the project. Oftentimes vested rights periods are increased to ensure the project as approved can and will be built. So that is kind of part of the basis for the request for an increased vested rights period, and that was just the one additional comment I had on that.
Well, I've been here for a while, and I have never seen council turn down a request to extend vested rights. I mean, you just don't do that. I mean, good reason, bad reason, no reason. I want to extend my vested rights. We just say yes, so.
Well, we sometimes put conditions.
We do sometimes, but we don't necessarily. We don't necessarily. So, I mean, there may be no stick in this whatsoever. It's just, I'm always more comfortable with 3 years because I have seen us do too many years sometimes. So I'm just, it's extendable. There's nothing hard and fast about it. And I would rather stick with the statutory 3 years and go on. But let's, anybody?
I wanna see 3 years. I wanna see this thing get done. They have a timeline. Money's cheap.
Yep.
Let that park have it. Let's get it going. Hold their
Anybody
feet to
down
the
here
fire.
got a different song? Dance? Thumbs?
Option 1.
One?
One.
One. Okay, onward.
So those were the decision options related to the conditions. Jody did bring up concern on condition number 29 and the 7 years. Does council want to have more conversation about that topic?
On the what?
The 7 years in the use of the security as it's written for the
Can you just
restaurant
read it
parcel?
or go through it real
Go through that
quickly?
one again.
It's just in there, but you have concern about it, so.
The paper, I think it's 14.
While you're turning your pages out, just, I'll let Susan or James correct me if this is incorrect, but I think some of the details on the issues that Jody pointed out would likely get addressed through the drafting of a development agreement. And the idea, I believe, is that there's, the developer would post this $250,000 of security to see that part is the stick, to see that the restaurant go forward, and in the event it doesn't, there's the ability of the town to draw on that security to pursue some improvements, and the proposed improvements might be an enhanced restaurant infrastructure
Trucking
there. Not a
Patio.
restaurant, but yeah, something that might complement a food truck's situation.
So would you
if I
say
understand it correctly.
not permanent structures type thing? Or, I mean, I think we have to say something here about what it might or might not be.
I guess I'm not seeing necessarily, I mean, we're not, I don't know that we could in real time put limitations about what, I mean, if you wanna say like it's not a fully enclosed structure or something, I don't think our intent is to do a restaurant, but we might, like the examples that I said before, that you have small buildings on it, or you have an open facility like the Snowmass Club where you kind of pull things down, or like Harry Teague's kind of idea that was open air. It wasn't,
Here.
Well, I was gonna kind of go on that vein, is not to get too specific on any of that piece, because we just don't know what we wanna do. And if we wanna use the $250,000 to build a small structure, we should be able to do it if that's what the town wants at that time. And so, but I didn't know, to me, the bigger question was the questioning behind all that. And is that what you're gonna put in the development agreement? Is
Is what, the
Well, basically, with the security, $250,000 security, the town can then pull it. Does it matter for what?
Trying to think, as written in the phasing plan, the 250 grand could also be pulled upon what failure to obtain the.
CO on the 15th unit, isn't that the 200, that's the real trigger.
Could you say that whole sentence again?
Why don't you say it, James?
Prior to the issuance of a CO on the 15th unit, if there hasn't been a building permit pulled for the restaurant, then the applicant has to put up $250,000 in the fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
you
I
guys
think
have-
Jen?
what Jody was getting at is, okay, so then what happens with that $250,000? Can the landowner, which isn't going to be this developer likely, it's going to be some other person that we are projecting this onto, could say, yeah, rent's 15 grand a month, or my mortgage of the carrying costs on this land is $3,300, you have to pay that, and then you're gonna pay utilities, and then I get, since I'm the landowner, just like a trailer park, I get 30% of all of your profits. That's kind of what we need to iron out, and I feel that it needs to be in gratis. They haven't gotten their stuff together. The developer, it's again one of those, of, if you haven't gotten it done, then the town is going to come in and create some of the vitality, and that is going to take our time, our staff time, etc., and that has an infinite value to it with our lean and mean staff that we have. And so therefore, I wanna say, if we do go with this, then it's no cost.
Okay, Susan.
Well, that was the intent, what Jen said. You know, it's not, they're gonna be able to turn around and demand a high rent. It is, you know, similar to when we grant a license agreement for construction. I mean, we're very used to doing that, of having license agreements for construction. There's indemnification, all that stuff, you know, gets played in. We're very used to that. And we have access to the site to do this, and there would be, to get a building permit, then, you know, we would have to remove our material. We could address that in agreements, but the idea was not that we get shut out because they're high rents or something like that.
Okay, so how does it stand right now? Just 1 second, Jody, I'll get you. How does it stand what is the staff recommendation on this?
I guess we thought it was, we didn't understand that the developer was objecting to it, and we thought it was a good incentive for them to build the restaurant, and that it was.
And the 250 comes when again, at the 15th?
The 15th unit.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean, you know, they're kind of independent, everything's kind of moving independently, but yes,
I think the developer's nodding, yes, let's go ahead with that idea. Yeah, I think so.
I have a clarification question. So the way that it stands, you are selling the land with the restaurant shell, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's it. I wanted to.
Okay,
Doesn't the food truck compromise solve this problem?
No, I have to get impact.
wait.
I mean,
He asked for the floor, you do have to do that too.
Sorry.
I mean, it seems to me that that's what vitalizes this site. If there's some other economic problems and the restaurant doesn't happen immediately, and you know, we all hope the restaurant happens in the next, 15 minutes, but it may not. So why create all this ambiguity into the future? The food trucks was a great idea. The pictures are, you see what kind of vitality it can create. That seems to be the best solution for the temporary interim use of this land until we get what we all want, which is the restaurant.
Was this in first reading, James, or?
Yes.
Yeah, and the 250,000 goes back to the sketch plan.
Oh,
We don't have a problem with the 250. That's not, I'm just talking about, and I'm happy to work this out with Jeff and Susan during the development agreement, and maybe TRC takes a look at it, something like that.
I thought it was the 250,000 that you had a problem with. What is it then?
I think correct me if I'm
Go
wrong,
ahead.
Jody, but I think the problem is using that to construct some improvements on the site.
On this site.
Okay, so you're okay with just plain $250,000 smack.
That's a whack in the
But
head,
you just
and we're
don't
gonna
want
try and avoid
anything
that.
done on the land. Are we okay with that?
I am.
I am.
Yeah, that's what I understood it to be.
I'm good with that.
Is there any raging objection to the direction we're going, staff, of just give us the $250,000
And we can use however we
fine?
want.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you have one more thing?
So I just wanna, the food trucks, they are an option and they do bring vitality, but I wanna make it really clear that they're not year-round, that they are for, June to September. So we're looking at 3 months out of the year, and again, that's sugar for the medicine, and that it could be a really long time. And that's just my concern I just wanna express that the food trucks are interesting in the summertime, but it doesn't solve, it's not this panacea for me.
Okay, let me just ask Jenna something. You know, like Denver Art Museum, how you can get food there?
Yes.
Is there any possibility that the art base may be available publicly for more than just events?
We're working with Tim and the Future Restaurant to hopefully choose a restaurant that we all love and is totally amazing.
Okay.
And can cater events at the art base. We have designed with Rich a service window to the rooftop terrace that think Aspen Art Museum as inspiration, but smaller scale. Can provide a cup of coffee, a glass of wine, a sandwich to go from the restaurant next door.
Okay.
I mean, that's definitely something we're exploring that's built into the designs that we're working on.
Okay.
Now, so say the restaurant isn't there yet and there's food trucks, we'll still have our building and service window and can certainly explore other opportunities, but we don't want to make it harder for the restaurant. We don't want to compete with the restaurant.
No, for sure. I'm just thinking in terms of the restaurant doesn't come in timely.
That we will have a lovely cafe window serviced by someone in the community, because we don't run restaurants, but we can certainly lease out our kitchenette to someone who wants to serve something up there.
You're so believable. I like it.
Done a lot of research.
Okay, is everybody?
I just have one more question. On the term food trucks, are we holding it to a food truck, or could it be like a container? Could it be there's so many different.
Flexible.
Yeah, it could be dropped and picked up, trailer. It doesn't have to be a quote-unquote truck.
The ordinance calls for the vendors.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Or
It
mobile
leaves that
bar.
out, because that would make sense.
That's good.
We'll make sure the
Susan's
language is in
got
that, that's
numbers.
actually in the covenant.
Susan, go.
Just a clarification, how this is gonna work is when the $250,000 is due, they're gonna pay it to the town, and we can use it how we want at that time.
Isn't that what it's written now?
You're just clarifying it, cause
Yes.
Jeff was asking me questions, sorry. I didn't know
If it's
so-
been through sketch and it's been through first reading, it has to have language already there.
So,
Okay.
and
Did
we'll,
you have something else?
no,
He was just saying, just not to improvements on that piece of property is the only thing we can't use it for.
Okay, so did
Like
we
on the
do a,
restaurant part.
did we do a thumbs up?
So just as a clarification, cause the word today is security, they're just gonna pay us $250,000. Okay, so that's gonna be the change. Instead of the word security, we're gonna just say that they owe us $250,000. It's not a letter of credit that we get to pull if something doesn't happen, it's just they pay the $250,000.
Like a speeding violation?
That's different than posting security. I'm not sure why you want
Well,
that.
because the question is, what can we use the security for? This is how the whole kind of question really came up at the meeting, is what can you use the $250,000 for? So that's kind of why I'm offering that.
How about
in-
park improvements?
Yeah, improvements in that immediate area in the park.
I mean, in the immediate area would be okay, that you guys pay us $250,000 and we can use it for improvements in the immediate area. That could be any number of things.
Yep.
Right?
Soft or hard.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, is everybody cozy with this one? It seems like,
Yeah, well, why would you restrict it? What if you've already done the park? I mean, why would
Well, you could use it,
It's part of
for recycle or events or,
I don't know why you'd restrict it. I don't feel strongly, but I wouldn't restrict it.
I mean, it would be great if we didn't restrict it at all, but I thought it was just
I'm into
adding
not
it.
restricting it at all. Is everybody okay with not restricting it at all? So
Yes.
general fund or whatever? Okay. I didn't hear anybody say nay, so, okay, we're good on that. What else?
So those were the 4 decision options, plus the concern about condition 29. So you can provide additional comments or discuss motions.
Additional comments or,
So I feel like we're almost there. I'm glad. It's a good compromise. The one thing that's sticking for me is the traffic reduction, the parking space reduction that isn't coupled with some kind of transportation management plan or a parking management plan. And that, James, you know that, what that looks like. But you know, there's some creative solutions that are like a car-to-go station or We Cycle station that's supported, or support for the bus system being free to Willits, or whatever. You know what these things are. But it seems to me that we're always talking about the impact on parking in the downtown. This is going to drive more parking, and I'm not sure you're going to be able to park all the different things once they're built out. So that's the one thing that I looked at between first and second reading and felt was concerning.
did it change between?
It didn't
You
change,
just-
but I looked
okay.
more
All right.
closely at it.
Okay, James, you have a thought?
Well, we do have requirements for contributions for kind of first and last mile improvements to get people to transit. Those being a contribution of $1,000 a year for the first kind of 7 years that there's substantial residential in the project. So that was an add since sketch plan approval. Yeah, I think, in general, parking could be difficult because you are looking at a reduction, but the reason that it was negotiated at sketch plan with the parking scenario that's proposed is that, we wanted to get as much park out of the development concept as possible. So parking could be challenging, in terms of like a car share scenario. We have contributions from other developers to provide vehicles towards car share, but we don't really have the administration potential of such a program at the moment. And that's kind of been a sticking point with being able to get car share working, and so, I don't think we can expect this applicant to administer such a car share program. We're still working on that concept, but parking is a challenge, and it was kind of a trade-off to get as much park out of it as possible.
What do you think, Todd?
Still uncomfortable, just because, we know it's gonna be a problem, and we're gonna legislate it, and it's gonna be a problem, and then I'll be like, those guys sucked, whenever, years ago.
So do you have a solution?
Well, those things I suggested are few examples of a transportation management plan or a parking plan, but there are other ideas. There's a lot of different things going on. Bus passes for occupants, that may not work either. I can give you a list of 10 things that won't work, but there are other things out there. I think we're at a point now where we have this challenge downtown, so that this is the one thing that makes, if this thing is as successful as we hope it will be, we're gonna have to figure that out.
If we had retained ownership of the commercial spaces, we certainly were on the bandwagon of requiring a tenant to have employee bus passes because of the location next to the bus stop. But when you change hands, you have less ability to do that. It's not that it can't be done, but it becomes much more complicated through master covenants. Declarations. And oversight of that. Because you don't have a landlord imposing the rules, you get an HOA or master association that may not really care to enforce that. So we did go down that road. We could maybe look at that again in terms of some sort of TDM focus that goes to bus ridership.
Yeah, in Willits, we do have conditions typically that the applicant provide a TDM plan for evaluation by the TRC, before they get a building.
Is this something that can be played with?
You know, I think you'd want to put a condition in there, like, you know, that before building permit of the buildings that you do a TDM plan. Typically, we don't do it on townhouses, just because they're individual ownership and it gets into the, you know, the more multi-use makerspace building and the art base and the restaurant. So
Right.
we could just write a condition.
Well, presumably townhomes would be parked, and it's the commercial that's gonna drive all the concerning traffic.
Right.
Again, I want it to be super successful, I'm just see this in the future.
Right, Jen?
So I'm really similarly focused with Auden. I'm not comfortable with the parking situation. There's 52 spaces required. The applicant's proposing 37, and now that's been reduced down to, in this iteration, there's 3 more whacked out of there for a loading zone or for, no? Okay, so the loading zone is still included in there? Okay.
They're just short term.
Okay, they're short term, okay. But on top of that, we are creating a traffic jam of, I'm trying to imagine where the Borden and the food, trucks, or the goods delivery semis are going to park, because there are no middle of the street loading zones like there are on Midland Avenue. The parking spaces consistently along the Rafta route there are taken. And so I don't want to, again, as Auden said, say in the future, oh, yeah, those guys made poor decisions, and affect Rafta service as well if those trucks are going to be obstructing traffic. And one of the solutions that I propose to staff is the PIF that is proposed by the applicants, and this is up to the applicants. They're proposing a 1.5% PIF on all sales, and they have it designated for park improvements. And I would like to suggest that go towards parking. It has been pointed out to me by staff that, okay, that's gonna be a minimal amount. I calculated if you buy $1.25 or a $2.25 coffee at the restaurant, and let's say they sell 100 of those a day, you're looking in a year between $7,000 to $14,000 a year that the PIF will generate, just back of the napkin calculations. And that could be really useful to help solve and look forward at our parking solutions. We're talking about how are we going to afford an administrator. Again, this is an example of how to do that, so I'm just offering a solution.
Question. How would you like us to address comments related to 8D and 8E? Should I just go for it?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we are at the end here.
Just as general statement, I think it is super exciting that Fork is seemingly moving forward, and with some vague signals that there may be movement on other parcels, this is a really great opportunity for Basalt. I definitely agree that it's time for council and Basalt to say yes. And I do want to agree with you, Tim. I also happen to take issue with Citizen Grauer's letter, which I agree was confused and evidences a profound lack of understanding, and that it is ultimately divisive. So you missed my earlier question to Jeff about citizen comments, but it was related to this same letter that I did not find to be at all constructive. On 8D, we talked at first reading about the allocation of risk, and I expressed my discomfort with the simultaneous closing and the dedication of public resources at the same time that there is significant performance risk. But in reaching out to other legal counsel, I understand that this is very much in keeping with precedent and with practice. And so I just want to come back to you, Jeff, and ask, again, if we are still of the opinion that all of the risks to the town and taxpayers have been reasonably and fairly addressed. And in first reading, you said, yes, you were confident that risks were fairly and appropriately assigned, and that the public sector was not going to bear undue performance risk associated with the performance of the developer. So that's.
Sure, I think what I said is.
I still have another comment on.
Sorry, I thought you wanted me to.
8E. No. So I have that as a question to you. And then I also flagged the RETA issue. I frankly don't ever remember discussing this, and it is a significant policy issue when you impose taxes on investors. That adds friction to a system, and I'm not in favor of that, no matter that I firmly support the purpose. Having said that, and having, trusting that the RETA is going to go forward, I wonder about the allocation, and I wonder why 1.5% is going to affordable housing and only 0.25% to the art space. I also wonder about the math, because it seems like there's a missing 0.25%. And I would agree with Mr. Kelly that if we are truly committed to establishing an identity and sense of community purpose that's associated with the arts, we can do better than 25 basis points. And I would suggest that we consider at least 0.5%, if not something significantly higher.
I thought you were saying you were against RETA.
In principle, I don't
Oh,
like
okay.
readers,
All
but
right, just checking.
I'm not gonna fight City Hall on that one, Mayor.
Okay.
But if the REITA's gonna go forward, and I trust it will, then I think it would be appropriate and consistent with our strategic framework and our sense of community mission that we consider something significantly north of 25 basis points.
Okay.
Can staff just explain the RETA math that you were asking about? The way condition number 3 is drafted, there's a 1.5% RETA for affordable housing purposes, and that comes about because of the code language that
That's what I said.
reduces the mitigation, so it has to be used for housing.
That's what I inferred from.
And then there's another 0.25% that is just for use by the town and appropriation by the council for general community benefit purposes. That's how it's in the ordinance currently. And then you've got the additional 0.25% for arts.
So, I mean, rather than having a community slush fund, I'd suggest that we take that other 25% or 0.25%, and I would motion that we consider that 0.5% of the RETA, of the 2% go to the art space.
Okay, let me go back to Jeff, who was gonna address your first part.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think Phil had 2 comments that were directed at, or questions for me. The first, both under 8D on the agenda. 8D is the ordinance approving the purchase contract.
Mm-hmm.
And so this 8D would approve the purchase contract, and again, this would play out as once the development approvals become effective and the plat would be recorded, the town would be in a position to then close on the purchase of the park parcel. That has nothing to do with whether or not the remainder of the development is actually going to be developed. The 8D has nothing to do with security for public improvements or anything else. That is simply the approval of the purchase agreement. As to security, what the approval ordinance calls for is that the public improvements be secured. I can't guarantee, none of us can guarantee that the private development is going to go forward, and I'm sure that's, I don't think anyone has said that in the past, so I was not quite clear on what you're asking about there. So again, public improvements are going to be secured through the subdivision improvement agreement.
Okay.
There are some additional conditions that would help put pressure on the developer to see this move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
So nothing's changed since last week, and that's exactly the kind of assurance that we want.
What you said,
we'll get to
what you said was not, I think not exactly what I just said. That's why I wanted to state it in those terms.
Okay.
Okay. Very good.
I accept your current statement.
All right.
That is, assurance that we have looked at all of the risks and we are confident that we are protecting the town and taxpayers' interests.
I'm sorry to push back on this, but risks of what?
Performance risk on the part of the contractor. If the developer doesn't perform and deliver as and when stated, that we are not going to be left with a big hole in the ground. That you've contemplated these things, and we believe that we, as a result of all of the due diligence that Ellers may have done and that you guys may have done, are confident that we are going to move forward. We're going to have a great project.
Can our attorney actually
So I don't
say
think,
that?
No, I'm not answering that in the affirmative. What I'm saying is that I can't guarantee, the town can't guarantee that the private development project goes forward. What we have done through the approval ordinance is secure the public improvements on the property, not the private development components.
Yeah.
So if the private development doesn't go forward, the town doesn't have the ability to go in and to develop it.
Correct. No, precisely. I totally understand that. But as long as our interest in the public components are secured, then that is as much as we can reasonably and fairly do at this point.
Right, and those being streets, sidewalks, utilities, park improvements, things of that nature, not the things on the individual parcels that are private.
Get it.
Okay.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay, so Bill has brought up, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, a suggestion, and I don't know if we can play thumbs up, thumbs down on this or not, but that currently there is a 1/4% that's gonna be allocated to the art base and a 1/4% allocated to the town for general use. And are you suggesting that the 1/4% that goes to the town be reallocated to the art base?
A specific purpose that supports our objective.
Okay, is there comments regarding this? Yes.
There's some math that I want to talk about on E, I think it is. But first, let me just go into, I do not support giving any additional RETA funds to the art base. I think that the 0.25% is very generous. What I would contemplate is when it comes to community benefit purposes in the town's 0.25%, that it actually be allocated to some type of initiative related to climate change and resilience and green initiatives, because we continue to try to find money in our operating budget to support that. And we know from our recent 5,000 comments out of the master plan that that is a huge desire of our community to address those items. So instead of just leaving it community benefit purposes, which I think is somewhat of a concern for you to have just a slush fund, if we could maybe narrow it down and have it be something that addresses climate initiatives, resiliency, funding our green initiatives. That's what I would propose.
In an effort to move this forward, I like that idea. I see nod here, nod there. Other nods or thumbs? Or would you prefer that we left, I mean, now the choice is to climate initiatives or remain in the general fund? Yes, ma'am.
I think something to consider is that, and I am not the expert on this, but it would be useful to have someone who knew more about it, but I believe that the way the RETA works is that it has to be used on that basis where it's collected. So the nonprofit, the art base being on that site is an applicable use because it's collected from the site where it's imposed. So I also think that the Willits RETA is a 0.5%, and so 0.5% would be consistent with what the town is doing for other arts organizations or nonprofits in the area.
Let's ask Susan to address that.
Well, I was just gonna say an attorney item, a planner say attorney item. It has to be of benefit to the people that are paying their real estate transfer assessment. So it's not a tax, it's an assessment. And so it has to, you have to, at the end of the day, make that call, which is a kind of a council call, that it's of the benefit of the people who are paying that assessment. So if you're spending it in and around the site, that's kind of the easy finding. Obviously if you're setting the art basis, it would be met, but it also does allow you to use it for, other uses that benefit the people who paid it.
Does Katie's application, do you think, fit or not?
Well, you could make it fit. I mean, you could use it for, I would just use the word green initiatives, because we have restricted pots of money that Christy and I spend a lot of time on, in allocation of funds. And so green initiatives is, where we're paying for our car charging and a lot of the recycle contribution that we make for bike share and gear and stuff. So yeah, I think you could come up with projects you could also, it's really a council kind of discussion about how specific you want to be on that use here.
Okay, we are gonna be here all night now. Okay,
I am
yes.
game for the 2.5% for green initiatives in consideration that it could be for a future circulator bus, which would be the first
Kind of
last.
address on this.
Exactly. And my concern about parking and my suggestion that the PIF be towards parking, green initiatives. I was also going to propose, why are there not electric car charging stations required on this?
Okay.
So that, it really does encompass and hug all of those.
Okay, it sounds like this could be encompassed and stay within the intent of the RETA to call the other 0.25% instead of general fund money, green initiative pot.
So there's two questions, is Bill's question to put it to the art base, and then Katie's to put it into green initiative, so I think we need to do a thumbs up.
Let's do that. So Bill's initiative was to put the other 2.5 that's currently headed for the general fund into the art base. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Was it, wait, can I clarify?
Yeah, sure.
Was it to the general fund?
Yes.
No, it's not general
Yeah.
fund. So just
Oh.
keep in mind, why don't you just do you wanna do it to the art base? That would be an easy kind of thumbs. Because then if people say they want to go to the art base, you don't have to do any separate questions.
Okay,
Just
to be
clear, is there something's going to our face? There's a 0.25?
yes. And so then the other question, so then we've got two here that we're foaming on, and that is whether the 2.5 is going to the additional 2.5 is going to the art pace, or potentially this other suggestion of green initiatives. So, let's go art base first on the 0.25. Gary, you got a thumb?
I got like that, I can go either way.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
let's then, put on the table the, additional 0.25 going to green initiatives.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You got 4.
Okay, all right, so, anything else we can belabor? Yes,
Now that we're through that.
okay.
It's a math thing. So when you look
Fine.
at E, that resolution related to the art base, it has 25% of 2%, which is actually 0.5%. You could just look at that, just look at that math, because I think it's not right. Okay, thank you, because that math just doesn't add up.
So the TDM is in, right? I mean, we didn't do a thumbs up on that.
It's in.
Okay.
Do you need some
No.
water? Water, Bill? Okay, go ahead.
I just have a question about the parking, like looking at the picture, is there any way to maximize to get more spots in there? Can we change it to angle parking? Do we have to have these giant curb cuts? I don't know how exact your picture is. I mean,
Well, we do have an option that we haven't taken back to the TRC, but it was, there's a couple of the angled areas that we might make into a parking space, and then in the winter time, there's like 3, I think, that we, would then, in the winter time, do the angled, you know, the temporary curb stop that Public Works is asking for. So in the summertime, which is really the high use area, we could get 3 more.
Robin's got something?
And I'd just like to answer your question about the curves at the inlets. Those are turning radiuses that are required by, according to Sopris engineers, the civil engineer, required by highway design standards and particularly by the fire district turning radius for their vehicles. We've met with the fire district and asked about changing those radiuses, and we can't get any more parking spaces there.
Unless you buy them a smaller truck.
Yeah,
Not even then, okay.
Guessing they wouldn't go for that, but.
and that goes the same towards that one at, that giant curb at RMI, towards RMI? Is that where you're talking about?
Yeah.
Adding those 3, 1 or 2 specific?
Yeah, we were able to pick up 3 with cooperation with Public Works and to the TRC, right?
By the way, I just have to acknowledge, this whole crew out here are gluttons. You're still all here. Thank you. Thank you for bearing with us. Okay, yes, Jen.
I have a quick fine print question, and it's on page 117.
Of which one?
Oh.
It's our packet.
Yeah.
So, page 15 is what's written on there, of page 117 of 206.
Yep.
That, it states in the second phase,
Those are all gone.
those are all gone?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanna confirm that there's no additional market residences located anywhere on the subdivision, that this language confused me. I guess now that it's gone, it's moot, but you are stuck to the number of residences, the square footage of each, and there's no wheelin' and dealin' there until you come back for a vested right negotiation, if ever, which I hope that doesn't happen.
Oh, it's set, it's in the tabulation,
Okay.
and that's, and all these highlighted, items are gone, because we went to the 3-year vested rights.
Okay, thank you. And then my final one is about the fencing. I'm really excited about the pictures that you showed and request that it be on 360 degrees of the fencing, not just the street facing.
Oh, yeah,
That
for
there
sure.
be decorations
Yeah.
the way around.
Yeah.
And as well, thinking about Carbondale and their very large development that is occurring in between City Market and CRMS, is thinking about the staging area and where you're staging construction area and dirt work, that I hope that it can be within a compact area and it's not spread out too much. And the beeping, I heard a lot of complaints in Carbondale. There wasn't sound mitigation with the fencing. I know that it's not required in our construction code, but just to please consider where your construction staging is and the amount of the audible impact that can occur.
Okay, any other general comments or other concerns that we should address? Because this is, yes, sir,
I was gonna start making a motion.
do it.
Okay. Mayor, I move that the town council adopt ordinance number 5, series of 2020 on second reading, and that includes the changes we made today, right? Did we
5
make
didn't have any
changes?
changes.
Just ordinance
this one.
5, that's
Yep.
code amendments.
Okay, so, yeah, so Mayor, I move that the town council adopt ordinance number 5, series of 2020 on second reading.
Second.
Okay, we have first and second, further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Holy cow, okay.
Second one, Mayor, I move that the town council adopt ordinance number 6, series of 2020 on second reading. This one had amendments, with the amendments that we outlined in this meeting.
Do you want me to go through 'em?
You better.
No, I don't think so.
Well, I'm a little confused about the PIF. Did it happen or not?
We didn't piff.
No, we did
No.
not.
I would recommend that we outline.
Go through,
the
okay, do
changes.
it, James.
Okay. So as far as the conditions go, we're adding TDM.
Buy yourself a cocktail later for all this work.
We're adding.
Maybe 2.
A TDM plan requirement for review by the TRC prior to the issuance of the first building permit on the mixed-use component or commercial component in the development.
Mixed use and, yeah.
We are going with 3 years of vested rights. We're adding the language related to the art base being able to have future use on the arts parcel as a nonprofit, community serving nonprofit. We are saying that banks and real estate offices are not permitted on the first floor, but there's an acceptable to have an ATM in there. We are not going with the 10-year purchase ability. And we have it in here that the town can use the $250,000 worth of security.
It's not security noises.
After 7 years, the town gets $250,000 that we can use.
But just as a clarification, it's just when it's paid, we can use it any way we want, because that's not paid after 7 years, it's paid on the 15th. Yeah.
And I believe those are the changes on ordinance 6 that I've heard.
And the Rita.
The Rita.
Well, but
That's a different ordinance.
No, it's
It's
actually,
also
it's,
ordinance.
it's actually,
catch.
you don't need to change the art base resolution, it would stay the same, but you would change this condition in here.
Okay.
So are we good, staff, with the additions on 8C, the changes? Are we good? Everybody?
So I make a motion with those changes.
Second.
Okay, further discussion?
Wait.
Pardon?
Nope.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Want to keep going, Gary?
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt ordinance number 7, series of 2020 on second reading.
And that's purchase of the park.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Are you good, Bill? Okay.
This is the, Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution 2, series of 2020, with the change of.
No need to change.
Yeah, you don't need to change, because the purpose, that we changed it in the ordinance, the purpose of this resolution is simply to say that the art center person who gets the Rita is the art base.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Mayor, I move that.
My one quick question on that is we discussed if somehow the art base didn't work out, that would go to a nonprofit,
Oh,
then we just revisit this.
Yeah.
If
Yes.
that happened,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we just
Yeah.
vote on something else.
So Mayor, I move the town council adopt resolution number 2, series of 2020.
And if I might add quickly, with the amendment from Katie.
Yeah, the map,
The
the
Yeah.
.25.
Yeah.
0.25%.
Green initiatives.
No,
No.
no, so there's just a
Type,
map.
there's I think a typo in
There was a
Yeah,
typo.
it's just teasing.
Oh,
Second with the revision that Katie proposed.
Correction. Okay.
0.25%.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, just,
do that?
Yep.
We did it.
did it. And okay.
Get to work, let's go.
Come on, that is
15 minutes, restaurant. That's what I heard. Come on.
We should waive our gift policy. If there's a restaurant, we should waive our gift policy for one night.
So, I mean, not to go without saying thank you for all your hard work. I mean, all, the community, all of the applicants, everybody, could have been worse.
Perseverance.
Could have been worse.
I'm trying to remember what you owe me.
I owe you candy bars, that's for sure. What?
Council work session.
Yeah.
Why do we have to do this?
Because you have a duty to the public. We're coming back together Thursday. We want to present the basic ideas of the changes to the council.
Okay, we'll start talking.
Yeah?
A lot of years for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you, yeah.
It was, goddammit, read my letter, read my letter. It's right there. Rick brought it in.
Hey, how are ya? Good.
I'm gonna go say hi to Jody. I know this is.
Cause for celebration.
Yeah, I know, it's super exciting.
Everybody, we have a 20-minute work session. Let's do it. You can go if you want. I'll have it thin. No, wait a minute.
I mean, how many things can you have?
You get two.
Hey, Ryan Mahoney, Susan Philp, let's do this. I don't know why we're doing it. Let's go. Hey, everybody, could you take conversations out? We're trying to finish up here. Okay.
Okay, everybody, the school teachers go, eyes on me or something. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. I think we only have 20 minutes. So I think the two questions I really have for you, there's really two questions. I'm gonna go back with background, but the two questions are you good with us showing density ranges for the primary and key parcels? And then are you good with our recommendation on the Meyer property, which is for the portion that's in unincorporated Chicken County, that we do more analysis and study on it and come back on that parcel? So those are gonna be like the two questions that would be great if we could walk out. In fact, if we walked out of the meeting and said, okay, I like ranges on them, but I don't agree with your ranges, I think that would be okay. Keep in mind what we're kind of gearing toward is we have a public hearing on Thursday. And on Thursday, we have a public hearing here in front of the council on the master plan, and we haven't really allowed, we've been talking individually to property owners, but we haven't really allowed them at the public sessions to express their desires, except we gave the Myers 5 minutes at one of the early ones.
Right.
So keep in mind, those are the two decisions. Are you okay with having density ranges? And are you okay with kind of putting things back on the Meyer property? So, you know, I'm just gonna kind of mention that we had, at the last meeting, we had our work session, so we've had 3 work sessions, and they've all really still focused on how many dwelling units are we going to be permitting in the plan. And there was a lot of uncomfort with the town council on the level of detail that there was shown on 3 of the primary parcels with the details on the buildings, and you asked for less buildings. And then you asked us to come back with 2 options, one that had density ranges and one without. So we did present those to the P&Z. We had a busy meeting at the P&Z meeting last Tuesday. First we had a discussion with Picken County P&Z, and then we talked about what we were hearing from the council. And I think we didn't take these density ranges, you know, really in an intense discussion, but my impression was that the P&Z felt more comfortable with density ranges. So what we ended up doing is on the future land use map. Hey, Kirsty, could you just get closer to Pam for a little bit? So I'm not pointing with a red item, with a red thing here, but so what we ended up doing was taking 3 of the key parcels and putting gray on them. So the Jadwin Stott, south side, and then the 17 acres of the Meyer property. We ended up putting those in gray. We also put in gray, and this is really for future discussion if we don't get it tonight, with the Roaring Fork Mobile Home Park, and we put gray on that. So we left in green the areas that we wanted to keep as open space, but then we put as gray. And then what we did is we created 2 options. This is what is in your packet, so I'm kind of assuming that you all looked at it. And given the time, I'm not gonna go into excruciating detail, but what we did on each one, and then in West Basalt, we didn't have any key or primary parcels, so right now that map kind of stays the same. So what we did was on those 3 parcels, we
created a A that had the density ranges, and then we created a B that just showed as the residential portions as residential, but they don't show any density range. So the map, you know, instead of showing those detailed buildings and everything, the map is more general. The map shows this is residential, and this is kind of employment opportunity, live, work, and here's your community facility, and here's your place where your cabins were, and here's your community facility, and here's the dog leg is open space. And in the two versions, the big difference is on the first version where we have density limits, we actually show as medium density residential, and then on the other one, we're just showing it as residential. And then in the text, we kind of say, here's your got-tos, here's, you know, your required improvements at a minimum density, regardless of the number of units, what are the things that you have to do? And then we're saying that to increase the density, these are the things that you have to do. So, you know, I'm just gonna go a little bit more detail on Jalenstadt and not so much on the other one, so you can kind of see the framework. On this one, with the density limitations, we said that the minimum density is 80, and then we said that you could go up to 180. On the minimum density, we said we're looking for the trails, we're looking for you to do the transportation fixes like at the slip lane and at Midland Avenue, that we're looking for a child care facility, that we're looking to protect the wetlands. So those are got-tos before you even ask for more density. But if you're asking for more density. Susan, quick question before you move on.
Yep.
We went through this, I know, and
Yeah.
I really like the direction that it's going.
Yeah.
It seems more easy to talk about.
Yep.
But I'm wondering why you would put I can see why you are saying that medium density is this and minimum density is this, but I'm wondering why you're putting a cap on the top or putting a number on the top.
Well, that's why we're asking you guys that question.
Okay.
We thought that having a range, after we thought about it more, I think we felt more comfortable, talked that as a staff. You know, other planners, you know, provided feedback. And, you know, what we're trying to do is give someone the range of the bookends of kind of what's possible on the site. We kind of thought letting it totally open maybe wasn't as much protection because someone could come in with, you know, 250 units that maybe that it does have an upset. Now in this particular case, that upset number is, you know, and the other thing we did was we rounded the numbers here because we were getting into, you know, 186, you know, we were getting very particular, so we rounded the numbers more. So this gives a bookend. This 180 was the number that the P&Z was aiming for. That's what they wanted.
That's what they wanted to come in with.
Yeah, that's what they wanted to come in.
I mean, this is fine, this is all fine with me. I mean, I think you guys have, you know, hashed it and rehashed it and talked to us and talked to each other. I mean, is everybody okay with the direction that this is going? Of getting rid of like the little houses and the exact development that was, I mean, that was a little bit like, I mean, in my old days, in my young days, when I was like 2 years here, I would have said, yeah, put that picture of what exactly we want on there. I don't buy that anymore. I think it's a foregone conclusion, and it may not be the best idea that could come in, so. Did you have your hand up?
I do. I have a question of, so it's 80 to 180, and what I'm not sure on is on the increased density, all of those are triggered once you go beyond 80?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's not all, there's some got-tos here. You know, regardless, you're gonna have to build the transportation improvements that are gonna be necessary to do your development. You know, we have this pedestrian bridge, and we have paid for the pedestrian bridge over the river and dedicate the open space that's shown on the plan. And then one or more of the quality of life density bonuses, that was the thing that I showed you on the first page. This one?
Yep.
So one or more of those.
Okay.
And the P&Z like this because some of these meet that
kind of requirements of the site, you know, close to transit, or is it infilled, and, you know, that's some of the things that you're looking for. And keep in mind that these are, and I put this up at the top when they required annexation, because, you know, these are guidelines. They give a lot of guidance to someone that's coming in the door, but, you know, you're not really locking yourself in totally. Just kind of keep that as background. Yes.
So you're just asking if this is the right direction?
Yeah, is this the right? Yes, I mean, if I can get through this, then we'll circle back if you have time, but my impression is that everybody had till about 9 o'clock, and then that was
Turning
pretty-
into pumpkins.
Turning into pumpkins, so I was trying to get some.
That's 8 o'clock for me.
Yeah, if we get through the general idea and we have some time, we'll go back to the numbers, and I do have, you know, the information that I handed out, but, so generally, everybody's okay with the direction of having, I won't go through.
Is anybody
those.
not okay with this?
Not necessarily specifics, like we still have to dive into specifics, and that's
Right.
Thursday and future, but general direction, good.
Okay,
Right?
and then,
That's what you're-
yes, and then we'll circle back if we have time, but, okay, so that's how JAD one works, and then here's how stop, we'll keep in with the density limitations. Remember, this is the one where we've got serious.
This is Southside.
This is Southside,
Yep.
sorry. And this one, you know, we have some significant traffic challenges to work through, but it has the same idea with the, you know, 35 dwelling units, and then you can go up to 55 if you can really prove the traffic works. If you're kind of above that, then we're talking about the underpass. And then this is the Meyer, so this is the Meyer property, and this is one we talked about at the P&Z level. So this was P&Z's recommendation. Now remember, the Meyer property on the 2007 plan was 143 units. It left the P&Z at 104 units. There was a lot of expression of concern. So the P&Z talked about it last Tuesday, and they kind of ended up with the low of 20 and the high at 50. And they were, let me go to the next slide here. And so what we were talking about is kind of this area, the 17-acre area, and they were okay with the 5 kind of rural lots off here on Cemetery Road. Kind of after the P&Z had their discussion and meeting, we talked about it more as staff, and what we ended up with, you can't see it that well on the slide, but what we ended up really kind of recommending was, you know what, if we're trying to get this plan adopted by the end of March, and we were thinking that it was really more in our kind of collective best interest to kind of put this area off, to kind of leave it as gray, you know, showing that we want to have this buffer between Elk Run and the community facility parcel maybe, but really talking about the entire Meyer property, that we should do a joint effort with Pitkin County, similar to the way that we're doing we have the Pitkin County Basalt Junction, the MJ area. And in that one, you know, we're going to be doing a plan after we adopt the plan, and Pitkin County's gonna take the lead. On this one, I see it as more of a joint effort with Pitkin County staff in the town of Basalt doing the work and bringing it to the Pitkin County Commissioners in the town of Basalt, but looking more holistic at everything. Because just looking at the 17 acres here, it really isn't dealing with, you know, what do we want to deal with the boundaries on this area? How do we deal with potential conservation of the ranch? You know, do we want to put any renewable energy facilities in this area and those things? And that's a much deeper look. So that was kind of our recommendation on the Meyer property. Everybody?
I'm good. I just have one quick question on the first one you showed on the Jadwin property. You had the 80 units, and then you said you could go up to 180 units if you met the certain details on that first
Yeah.
page, which
Yeah.
already that kind of meets.
Yep.
So it kind of feels like you're just saying, well, it could be 80, but realistically, if it meets because it's gonna click off the transit one, cause it's near there, it's gonna click
And
off
it's
one or
infill.
two.
So let's go back on that one after we do, so right now, I was just kind of throwing
Oh,
out-
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
I thought we were
Let's,
going to
no,
Myers.
we're talking about Myers, and then, are you talking about Myers in the same kind of question, or?
It's just a general question, and
Uh-huh.
it feels like, I like the way you did it, but it feels like the end goal for all of this and why we were talking about it already checks off some of those boxes, so I just wanna make sure that you are getting more, that extra benefit that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's not like automatically assumed in some of this stuff, because it was, some of the stuff will get checked off because of where these parcels are.
Right. Some of them will, and I think that's one reason the P and Z was more, comfortable with that idea. Now, on Jadwin, they have some pretty, to get the higher density, they have some pretty significant hurdles, because we have the, hey, you gotta dedicate this land, and two, you gotta build a bridge. But those other that's really up to the council when they're kind of negotiating. Yeah,
Just bringing it up.
no, it's a point, it's a valid point.
Okay,
So, on,
Gary? Thumbs up?
I was just giving I like the direction on Meyer because it really opens the door to more negotiation. And it actually, brings the conversation back to what can this area really handle? And I think the discussion, this is opening the door to the Myers and the town and Picken County to have a really good conversation about the future here. So.
And a negotiation idea, just that I wanna put out there on the Meyer property, as we have specific for other parcels, such as the Jadwin Stott, the, bridge over the river, which I'm not a huge fan of, I just wanna disclose that, is on the Myers property to create another lane of traffic from Highway 82 onto, Two Rivers Road. So imagine the existing right turn, if you are on Two Rivers Road,
you're talking about the light?
correct, yeah. and
Yeah,
the
we were
light.
talking about that today.
So that you have a double left turn into
Yeah.
Up Valley Highway 82, and then
Yeah.
there's a slip lane to get off of Highway 82 that goes through where in Modio the sculpture is currently.
Well,
Because-
it may be, we were talking about that because we've been working with CDOT on some other issues, and there might be enough right-of-way to do double left.
Yep.
And with the inside left being the right turn lane also, so you'd have, the opportunity to do the double left or the right, so there might be enough right-of-way on that one.
So I'd like
Yeah,
to include
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so on this, the future study one, we'll put that on the list of things that we want, because we do have our list of things we wanted, included that kind of trail that connected to the Roaring Fork Club, so you could, instead of coming down those steps there, you could come through here and stuff like that. We'll include that in that list. So is everybody else okay with the way we're doing Meyer? I guess that's what
Yeah.
okay. Next, we showed on that future land use map I showed at the very beginning, we showed the Roaring Fork Mobile Home Park with gray, and then as open space, we showed, the area that's always been shown on the river master plan, to be, open space. So this map here is kind of showing, like, what we've been showing at all the other meetings. This is kind of the future land use pattern for the Roaring Fork Mobile Home Park.
And the adjacent property.
And the adjacent
Correct,
property, yes. This property, like coming back through here, like this, is actually Alice Stott's. So this is Alice Stott, and then this is the mobile home park. You can see it more clearly here that, this is the mobile home park, and this is Alice Stott's property, and then this little sliver is owned by Clay Paul and Michael. So we're doing kind of a general check-in with you, just before we totally weigh in. This let me show you this map. This is shown really to correspond to the river master plan, which was looking for a kind of a beltway of open space through here so that the river isn't in this pinch point in here. So there were very practical reasons. It was envisioning this particular configuration envisions removing the mobile homes and regrading the site. And, you know, with the amount of time I have, I don't know that I can go down into all the floodplain, floodway kind of issues that are on that site, but where's my map here? We just heard some general scuttlebutt in the community about the desire to keep the mobile homes. The mobile home park owners here, right?
Or a representative.
Of representative. To be clear. So we're looking really for direction on this parcel.
I guess I thought we had sort of talked about this and we were gonna leave it alone.
We've never, as a council, talked about.
Oh, maybe we've just talked amongst ourselves.
So we need that direction of kind of what thoughts are there.
So what's the gist of it? I mean, what are the choices? Leave it alone or?
Well, leave it as we had on the future land use map, which.
And this is an annexation property?
It is an
It
annexation.
is, I can show you that, it's actually in 2 counties, there's mobile homes that are in 2 counties. So this map, you know, just kind of showed, we grade, I mean, we could show this in different ways, but we grade the area of the mobile home park, and then we continue to show green along the river, but not showing it in kind of those future land use designations that we had on the 2007 map. The 2007 map and the way that it originally was presented was.
Do you have a presentation that follows the pattern of the other ones? What that
No,
it
because this
says?
one isn't a primary parcel. I mean, we can do more, but we just wanted to kind of bring it to you and start the conversation, because we haven't had a conversation in front of the council.
What is that representing? The MUR and MUC?
Oh, the MUR is mixed-use residential, which is about 2/3 residential and 1/3 kind of commercial. So more commercial on the first floor and residential on the second and third floors. The mixed-use commercial is, you know, this same category that you use for kind of dense commercial development. Has a pretty high FAR, has 1/3 residential and 2/3 commercial. Bill?
Yeah, I was just kind of curious whether this is within the jurisdiction and authority of the town to, you know, what is our relationship to this property? My understanding was that it was unincorporated Pitkin and Eagle, and if past precedent is any indication of the future, if the current owners do not want to annex, then do we have any authority or jurisdiction over this property whatsoever?
Sure, we're showing, what we're doing here is to show if someone came in for annexation, what we would want to see developed on the property. So that's number one. And number two, if someone came in to Pitkin County and Eagle County with a land use application, we would use this map as a guide to tell them what our recommendations would be on the application.
So basically, like Stott Jadwin, they're in the county as well. I mean, most of these key parcels are not in town, they're just like this.
Well, I had a question about that, because I did note in the upper left-hand corner, or the upper right-hand corner, that it said, subject to annexation.
Right.
And I didn't realize that for some of the properties such as Southside. I thought that we had already annexed that.
I don't know about the parcel on South Side.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's all annexation.
So
unincorporated.
none of these key parcels
So this
are,
is
we
even
have any,
More
Say-
vague than.
3 mile
They're all
radius.
Because on the
So-
ones in Pitkin County, and the ones in East Basalt, the town has a lot more control, because we provide water. So if anybody wants to have an urban level development, we're not gonna provide water unless they develop. And these are just natural, as you said.
Unless they
they're natural,
annex.
Unless they annex into town. And in this particular case, in terms of redevelopment, it's always been talked about as being annexed into the town of Basalt.
well,
If it was redeveloped.
I'm just gonna throw out there, because this is the conversations I have heard and been involved in, is that I want to protect those people and the housing that they're in right now. And I know I've talked to Gary some, and he feels that way, and I don't know who else around the table. Katie's giving a head nod. So I don't know why we would necessarily show a future land use map like we have on like Jadwin-Stott, for instance, where we want high residential development, because if we do show that and encourage annexation and from the property owner, we are talking about redevelopment and booting those people all out. So
You're making it gray.
Well, I'm saying that's an option. I made it gray on that map. This is a check-in. What do you guys want? You want future land uses? Do you wanna leave it gray?
No, I was happy to leave it gray, because I really think this is gonna be a long conversation about that. That's my personal opinion, is I don't feel that, we wanna show, I don't wanna show, a future land use on that one. I really do wanna see, cause honestly, you see that lovely line through the middle of it. It's in Picken and Eagle County. And so we need a lot of help on that one, and really trying to figure out what is the best use, and not to just magically dismiss the people that are living there now.
And as well with Gary's point, and what is suggested with Stotts Mill, of collaborating with the two counties as well, and looking at what their current land use is, and again, so that we don't tree farm, as Eagle County tree farmed us, that we don't tree farm Pitkin County or Eagle County.
I've never heard that, is it?
I like it though.
Yeah.
I don't think that would happen.
It won't happen, but just so that we are referring and getting input of our.
My statement would just be, I don't think it can be a trailer park forever, as much as we would want it to be, and someone is eventually gonna do something with it. So to have some guidelines, as an example, to encourage investment in our town is fine by me.
Well, I don't know what the status is now. I mean, I've heard scuttlebutt, but like John Fox Rubin had talked about the fact that there are multiple mobile home parks in Picken County that have been purchased and then repurchased by the individual owners, so they have become homeowners and landowners. So that is a potential. I don't know if it is anymore, but Auden, Bill?
I think Gary's right. It's super complicated, and it was worth time and energy in trying to figure out where it goes, including issues like you all brought up. So I'm okay with it being gray.
I agree.
Being gray doesn't mean nothing's gonna happen to it.
No.
I mean, that's definitely not, basically in the future, something there, but I don't wanna give anyone that you gotta do that.
Right.
Is AH affordable housing?
That's
Yes.
like.
It's shown on that corner.
Uh-huh.
So this one, this came from Bach. They showed
A little sliver.
that little
Sure.
sliver between the fence and the road.
But maybe when we do this at the public hearing, we end up saying, do you want it to look like this? You want to leave it gray? I mean, give the public hearing folks something to have a conversation about, yeah?
But I have to say, I'm kind of more inclined with Ryan to telegraph some notion of what this parcel might be used for. And if there's a way to kind of use a Heather Henry approach where you don't specify, but you do provide the broad contours, and not only for the public, but also for these gentlemen who've got some relationship with the property going forward, they probably are interested as well in what might be plausible.
So,
I think we have an interest, frankly, in advancing that. Not taking a position isn't taking a position. In this case, I think we want to take a position and simply affirm what might be possible in the abstract.
well, and I think we want to ask, I think there's a couple options that we can just let the public weigh in on. Of, show it gray or show it with something. Or the other option of talk with the counties, sit down and talk with the counties about where this might be going.
That's the gray, is to really have that conversation about it in the future and not popping out. I mean, yeah, you could talk about all the potential uses of it. I don't want it to be a vote of this versus this. I don't think that is useful at all.
No.
I think by kind of saying, you know, it's gray, but gray doesn't mean nothing. Gray means like, we got a lot of work
Yeah.
between the counties and the town and the landowner to figure out what's best here. It's gonna be a full-on negotiation, no matter what.
Okay, is that good enough, Susan?
Yes, do you want me to run through some numbers and then I can see you have your code on?
Numbers?
So I just,
We're
do you have
way past
questions?
what we said.
What, okay, so if you guys, just, this is your
Let's do it.
homework
Let's get it
assignment.
done.
Okay, here's your homework assignment, just look this over. This has the in-town number of units and the urban growth boundary. And then we have the maps that are kind of showing, where, like the little squares are where approved unbuilt units and the, primary and key parcels have the ranges with the units on it. And then we'll amend Meyer to take this unit number off, but, that's one of the exercises that you asked us for. So that's your homework assignment, read it.
Well, I think honestly, it just reflects what we just talked about. I mean, to me, that just reflects what we just talked about, so I'm okay with that.
Well, we'll,
I know you're gonna,
Yeah.
you're gonna amend it a little bit, but I think it totally reflects exactly what we just talked about with the amendments that we just gave you.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, anybody have anything left of energy or questions or anything else? Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Everyone,
Hard work, hard work.
Yep, Thursday night. Thank you all.
woohoo.